The story begins with the protagonist facing the Ice Queen. Even though he was among the lowest-ranking players on his team, he barely managed to eliminate the Frost Queen. Because of that, he would remain asleep until he could absorb her core. That's why he stayed asleep for a long time. After 5 years, he found his old companions frozen. But a system said the seal could be removed, and the MC thought he could save his teammates using the skills he gained after defeating the Queen. Basically, there were monsters that existed inside the portals, and even some friends who tried to eliminate our hero. And after a few years, many new types of monsters appeared. The NC was eliminating all of them, thinking he would recover his status, so he could save his friends from the ice prison. And to do that, he would abandon the title that had turned him into a legend and once again fight the creatures inside the portal. And this is where our story truly begins as the protagonist enters the final boss room and finds the Ice Queen. She asks how he felt after losing all his comrades. Our hero says that wasn't exactly true since his friends wouldn't be taken down so easily. After all, once she was defeated, everything would end and they would be unfrozen. But for some reason, the Queen suddenly starts laughing, saying the MC was too naive to think it would all be over just because he won. But the protagonist doesn't care and simply tells her to shut up, because he didn't have time for chatting, as he would do everything he could to eliminate her and end all the chaos she had caused. Then in the next moment, our hero charges toward her, and the two begin to fight. I think the protagonist has the upper hand since he doesn't seem to be losing. But suddenly, the Queen starts casting a nice spell, and after seeing that, the protagonist is surprised. At the same time, he dodges her attack, which destroys a wall. After dodging, our hero is thrown far away. But after that, he charges at her again. Only this time, the protagonist manages to land a hit on the Queen's body. And I think he won since the woman kneeled on the ground afterward. She says the fight against the protagonist was fun, but our hero says he didn't find it fun at all. And right after that, he throws his sword into the Queen's body, and suddenly she starts to glow. The system says the user is absorbing the Ice Queen's power, and because of that, the owner would sleep until he could absorb all her power. And after seeing that, the MC was surprised, wondering what was happening. Going back a few days before the protagonist fight against the Queen, someone punches a wall saying they had to be kidding, because if they did what was being ordered, they would all be eliminated. The reason was that only one person could climb the stairs in the final boss room, and a woman says her friend should calm down since they didn't have much time left and needed to decide carefully what to do. In the next moment, she says it would be better if our protagonist climbed the stairs. Another man says he agreed with his companions since they all had weaknesses against ice and only our hero could fight the final boss. The man from before says he was really angry because he couldn't go. But giving up, he says that there was no one else besides the protagonist who could go head-to-head with the monster. The girl says that since Callie had already agreed, they could all just say they shared the same opinion. And after hearing that, the man asks what she meant by it. Then she says that truly there was no one more suitable than the Spectre to do it. So everyone says that it was already decided and our hero would fight the monster. Then the protagonist asks if his companions were sure they wouldn't regret it. A blonde guy says they'd be pissed if the MC lost to the Queen, since in that case, all of them would have been eliminated for nothing. But that didn't matter since they all trusted their comrade. Sky says she knew they wouldn't be eliminated for nothing since the protagonist wouldn't lose. After all, he couldn't possibly fail that mission. But jumping 25 years into the future, someone says it was already 2024 and monsters humanity hadn't been able to defeat were appearing. The Ice Queen was a very powerful creature who had frozen most of the ocean with a snap of her fingers. 5 heroes went to fight her. A child asks if those people were the ones who attacked the nest, and the man says that's right. Since those legendary players had made the greatest achievement in history, and they were called the 5 heroes. Because thanks to them, the Queen was defeated and many safe zones appeared on Earth. But suddenly, one of the statues began to crack, and upon seeing it, the boy from before says he saw someone move. It was actually a woman, not the man who said that, and she says it was impossible for the statues to move, because the temperature was extremely low and there was no way anything could happen in there. So nothing would ever happen to the ice statues. But in the next moment, she gets scared for some reason. Yet she keeps insisting that there was no way they could start melting after so many years. But out of nowhere, the protagonist emerges from that block of ice and crashes headfirst into the glass. Then a system window appears saying that the absorption rate had reached 100% and it congratulates the user. The MC says is freezing, and the system once again says he had successfully absorbed the Queen's core. And because of that, he had received a new skill. But the protagonist is extremely confused, wondering what had happened. A few hours later, several newspapers report that the Spectre had awakened. And upon seeing that, he wonders if it had really been 25 years since his fight against the Queen. He could barely close his hand after being frozen for so long, thinking that even after breaking free from the ice statue, his body was still trembling. But then several doctors arrive and say that the president of the player association was on his way to the hospital. The MC asks if it was someone he knew, while thinking that if he didn't, he'd just send the guy away. And the doctor says the president claimed the MC was his friend, and Sue thinks there were very few people who could call him a friend. So he thanks them for the heads up while thinking he'd find out who it was once they met. And in any case, the world really had changed after 25 years. And that's what he and his friends had wanted, since now the world was peaceful with no more dungeon breaks. But breaking that mood, he wonders what he was supposed to do now, since all he knew was how to fight. But then he thinks it didn't matter at all, since he no longer needed to use those skills. And after taking off the mask on his face, everyone around looks confused as they ask the protagonist why he removed the mask from his face. Our hero says it was obvious, since the world was at peace now, no one needed him anymore. But after he says that, the people around are left speechless, not knowing what to say to the NC. Then out of nowhere, a guy appears saying he would explain everything to the Spectre. And after seeing that, the protagonist is surprised, and I think he knows this guy. It really seems like he does, because after looking at that man, he asks if it was really Dioku. And after hearing that, the doctors suddenly start laughing. Then the man says he wanted to talk to the protagonist alone, and the others say they'd leave. The man says his friend really hadn't changed at all after all those years, and our hero says that person really was Dyak. Laughing, the protagonist says he already knew his friend would go bald. And after hearing that, the man says that after all these years, that was the first thing Seo had to say, saying that he really was an idiot for thinking they would have a more exciting reunion, and the MC asks if that's what his friend had expected. The MC says that after 25 years, they still hadn't found a cure for baldness, and that wasn't all, since his friend was also fat. But in the next moment, he asks why the doctors had acted that way, since everything was supposed to be over, and after hearing that, the man is left embarrassed. He says that 25 years ago, after the 5 heroes exterminated the Queen's nest, all the players received the same message. It said that the Ice Queen had been defeated, and Deep thinks his friend had really done it. The system said that safe zones would appear on Earth. And after that, people all around the world began to celebrate. But that wasn't how it went, because that joy didn't last even a minute, as a dimensional elevator had been installed in the ocean. That would be the second floor of the era of invasions. And after reading that, everyone became confused. Then they started screaming for some reason, even though the system wouldn't hear anything, and it wouldn't help. And after that, players around the world, the association, and even politicians gathered for a major meeting. And then they sent a group to explore the new frontier. But the second floor was different, as it was a land where humanity gained magic, technologies, and even large amounts of resources and knowledge. After hearing that, our hero asks what else had happened. Dyak says that this event made the world rich, and this new area had 10 floors. That was the total number of places that could be explored through the dimensional elevator. The MC thinks it took him and his comrades 5 years to defeat the Ice Queen, and currently, hunters should be on the 7th floor. But the other hunters were very weak, so only he and his friends went to fight the Queen. And in truth, they might have only reached the 5th floor. So he asks how many floors they had explored in the last 25 years. And after hearing that, the man was awkwardly silent, and our hero started sweating and asks why his friends suddenly went quiet. The man says that in recent years, humanity had only managed to finish the 2nd floor, and with many casualties. After hearing that, our hero was left speechless, as the guy even fell backward. DX says he couldn't believe it either. And our hero says it's already been 25 years and they had all that time to complete the 10 floors. And standing up, he asks if his friend was really saying they only finished the 2nd floor, and the man says it might sound like an excuse, but there was a reason for it. And the MC says he'll only listen because he's curious about how dumb that reason must be. And the guy was clearly shaking into the protagonist's pressure. He says the reason was because they didn't have the Ice Queen's core, and after hearing that, our hero felt awkward. Dyak says that the 3rd floor was a volcano area, so only a few players could go there. And after a long time, they managed to find the altar, and to proceed to the next stage, they needed the Queen's core. And after that, he apologizes, saying they had searched her nest several times. But even so, they couldn't find it after many attempts. And the protagonist thinks that was obvious since he had absorbed the core. So he says there was nothing they could do. The guys just had bad luck, and it wasn't their fault since everyone can make mistakes, and he understood that. Trying to play it off, the MC says that if he made a mistake, it wouldn't be a big deal either because he was human too. And the man says exactly that there's no problem in people making mistakes. And that's when the protagonist wonders how he's going to explain this situation to his friend. Sometime later, the man says it's already late, so it's time to eat something. And the MC says his friend could buy him whatever food since he didn't mind. Then he asks if the Seoul History Museum was a famous place. After hearing that, the man was surprised and said he would go downstairs since the 1st floor was full of reporters. Then the protagonist tells his friend to go back to the hospital once he figures out what he needs to do. I think a few days had already passed since someone said the authentication was complete, and I think our hero was entering a museum since there were several dragon bones there. But after that, he looks to the side, thinking that it could only be in that place where his friends were. And he was right because there were 4 frozen statues there. Sitting down, he apologizes for arriving late, saying that the world had become a better place to live in and that they had finally protected the peace they had always dreamed of. Then he says that now his friends could rest without worrying about the future. And the guy places 4 cups on the ground, saying his friends could have that drink. But he drinks it alone, then he lowers his head, muttering meaningless things until suddenly he sees something and gets angry, saying that his friend's statues were covered in dust. So he starts cleaning the head of his old friend. But at that moment, the system says the user had the frost skill, but his magic stat was low, so he failed to remove the seal. The system said that with the skill he had, the user could remove the ice seal, so he wonders if he could really break it and bring his friends back. Right after that, he looks at his status window and questions whether his magic stat was really just 18 since that was extremely low. And that's when he enters an existential void as the image suddenly stretches. Then he says he wouldn't be able to solve this quickly, but even so, it was still possible. So looking at the frost skill, he thinks that was the key to saving his friends. Since Dyak had always said that S rank was the highest rank, and he was probably the first to acquire that skill. But his magic was a problem. Then he wonders if he had gained that skill after defeating the Ice Queen. Then after reading what was written on the system, he asks himself if all the stats would go up by 30 points every time he climbed the floor. So he thinks he can return to his original level after ascending the floors and maybe even become stronger than before. He could even obtain the Ice Queen's power and use it however he wanted. And that way, he could melt the ice imprisoning his friends and save everyone. With trembling hands, the protagonist says his friends just needed to wait a little longer because he was going to get all of them out of those ice statues. The next day, someone asks if his friend really wanted to become a player again, and the MC asks why Dyak was surprised since he didn't know how to do anything else besides hunting. And the man says it was too sudden since the MC always said he wanted to retire, and C replies that was 25 years ago. The man says that didn't matter since this wasn't a good idea, because the protagonist should rest after working so hard. And another reason was the demons. Basically, demons were players who used their powers to commit all kinds of crime, and those crimes varied ranging from terrorism to simply eliminating people to satisfy their desires. Our hero asks if they had really come back since back in the day, they could barely breathe. Dyak says there were no cameras on the second floor, and not even the country had ways to stop them. And since the MC wasn't there to stop them, no one else could either. CO says he now understood why his friend didn't want him to return as a player. And since no one is made of steel, the protagonist was eating. Continuing, he says the demons probably hated him a lot, and Dyak says they were probably already thinking of ways to hunt the MC down. And the man says that was exactly why CO should stop trying to return to being a hunter. Then he asks why the MC wanted to go back to being a player since the only way to do that would be to abandon the name Spectre and return to being CO. After hearing that, the protagonist says he wanted to go to the 10th floor, and the man is confused. Our hero says that no matter what happened, he needed to reach it. The man asks why his friend wanted to reach the top of the second round. The MC says that Dyak had said they couldn't get past the 3rd floor, and the man says that was exactly the point. Our hero says he had a way to clear that stage. And after hearing that, the man is surprised. He asks if the MC really had a method, and our hero says his friend had mentioned they needed the Queen's core. So he says he ate it, and the man asks if CO was saying he had just finished eating porridge. But the protagonist gets awkward and doesn't answer his friend's question, leaving the man confused. At that moment, it clicks as he goes silent while Seo looks scared. Then the guy asks if the MC was saying he had eaten the core. Seo says he didn't eat it on purpose since the moment the Queen was eliminated, her power entered his body. In the next moment, the man suddenly starts feeling sick, and the protagonist says it wasn't that big of a deal since now he had the ability to freeze. Then the man asks if Seo thought he'd be able to get through the 3rd floor that way, and the MC confirms it. I don't think Dyak really believes it since he stays silent for a while. Then he asks if the reason the MC returned to being a player was because of his comrades. With a smile, the protagonist says that's exactly it, and that there was no other reason. Dyak says it was really good to hear that, and the protagonist says he knew it. The man then says he would go after the doctors who saw the MC's face, and C says Dyak had finally learned how to do things right. Then he says his abilities were sealed, and that's why he's level 1 now. And Dyak asks if his stats were also reduced, and our hero says that's exactly it. He asks if his friend could arrange a new hunter license for him. Then Dyak says there was something he forgot to tell the protagonist. Since the guilds were stronger than the associations, the NC asks if Diek could get the license for him, and the man confirms, saying that the big guilds conducted tests for people to become players, and the license could only be obtained by passing the public exam. So he couldn't help, and our hero says that would be really annoying, and the man agrees that it would be tiring. But either way, it was a good opportunity for his friend, and after hearing that, the protagonist is confused. Diek says that if he wanted to support Seo, he'd need a good reason to do so others wouldn't find it strange. Then he asks if his friend understood what he meant, and our hero gets that usual smirk on his face, thinking he'd have to get the best result on the test so everyone would want him. So he says he understood what his friend meant. That's why he would take the test to become a new player. Cut to another location at the Players Association where the test would take place. There were several extras waiting for it to begin. Many people were talking while the MC thought about how he had to spend money just to be there. While a woman told the MC he had to wait, he was thinking that the mood in that room was pretty normal and that it would take a while until it was his turn to take the test. The MC wonders if he should pay attention to what the others were talking about. Then out of nowhere, he activates a skill that lets him hear better. And after activating it, some extras were talking about dungeons and about who the examiner for the test was. So he thinks the people here weren't really the fighting type. Then someone says that contestant number 1 could enter the testing room, and suddenly a system window pops up. It seemed like that window was for others to watch the participants fighting or something like that. And after seeing that, our hero is surprised, and that's exactly what it was, since a bunch of monsters suddenly started appearing. A nerd says that number 1's fighting spirit was really good since the monsters were backing off from the spear attacks. The guy said he was super jealous because that guy was going to pass easily without any trouble, but the MC thinks that wasn't exactly true since a spear was the best weapon to create space. But once the opponent started to close the distance, randomly swinging the spear would be useless. And that's exactly what happened since the guy was on the ground being attacked by monsters, and a voice says that number 1 had failed. Then the protagonist thinks he now understood how the test worked. And the protagonist really took a long time in there since the guy we saw before was number 1. And now they were calling number 75, which was the MC. Someone was saying that they were finally finishing the test. Since they hadn't liked any of the participants and none of them had met the basic requirements, the X said it would be better if they just ended it already. Then someone starts to walk in, and we already know it's our hero. And for some reason, the people inside felt the pressure because suddenly everyone looked surprised. Now I get why. Some background character said the MC had brought every type of weapon into the test. Another guy said the protagonist was too skinny and looked like he couldn't even fight a normal human. A woman suddenly said our hero was just another guy trying to copy the old Spectre. DX said that was interesting, but he was also thinking that he had told his friend not to draw attention. And the protagonist really was loaded up, because the guy was carrying every kind of weapon imaginable. Then someone asks if our hero was ready to fight, and the protagonist says he was ready, and the test could begin. In the next moment, several monsters started appearing again. The MC thinks that it didn't matter how many there were since they were just copies, even if they looked real. And getting ready, he says this scene reminded him of the old days. Then in the next instant, the goblins begin to charge at the protagonist, and suddenly they start leaping into the air. The MC was clearly excited, seemed like the guy was laughing during the fight. With a single attack, he eliminates several goblins, which begin to disintegrate, and the remaining monsters watch their allies get taken out right in front of them. Suddenly, start to flee, and for some reason, the MC thinks more monsters are appearing when actually they were just running away. But it doesn't matter. He grabs a bunch of sharp weapons in his hand. In the next moment, he throws them at the monsters, thinking the goblins were really annoying since they kept trying to get him from behind. And after that attack, the monsters were eliminated. And it's at that point they feel true fear to this day, because after that, they start to flee. But the big monster says it's useless for them to run since the one who had taught him how to use a bow was the best archer in the world, Gilbert Green, or for close friends, Goat's buddy. The monster must have gotten mad, because he made that kind of face. Then two goblins started attacking the protagonist, but Seal picked up a sword and began dragging the katana, or whatever kind of sword, on the ground. And while the monster was advancing, the protagonist kept dragging the blade, and the goblin kept moving forward. The MC was laughing. And right after that, he starts to raise his sword. The monster kept charging toward the protagonist, and he was still holding his sword without doing anything. But at that moment, they begin attacking each other as both sides get ready. And our hero had everything planned out because he starts smiling. In the next moment, he begins slashing at the goblins and they are all eliminated. Even he is surprised by what he did, and everyone says he passed and congratulates the MC. Seo thinks he's really tired and needs to train his body, and everyone says he did really well, thinking it wouldn't be a problem if they recruited him into the association. Dayak says that judging by everyone's looks, it seemed they had reached the same conclusion, thinking that he felt bad for lying about the protagonist's true identity. A few days later in Dayak's apartment, he didn't seem very happy. The reason was because the protagonist was eating a bunch of food and messing up his house without a care. Deep thinks that the most famous player in the world whom everyone admired was really like that. But the guy tells himself 3 times that he has to hold it in and not fight with our hero. But it's at that moment that he stops thinking that way because the MC says something I won't repeat, but it's probably going to show up in the edited version. Then the guy yells at the protagonist, asking what he was seen to say something like that. And C says the MC in the book was a priest, but only kept fighting and never healed. So they keep talking about that for a while longer. And in the next panel, DX says he brought the stuff our hero had asked for, asking why he had requested information on incomplete portals if he couldn't even enter them at his current level. And the MC says he obviously would go since there was no other reason for him to ask. Dayak asks if he knows what the uncleared portals actually meant, and the MC confirms. The portals were full of monsters and traps, and there were even some so dangerous that sometimes players didn't even leave their bodies behind. And those dungeons that were never cleared were called incomplete dungeons. The man keeps saying it was way too dangerous while the protagonist insists that he could handle it. He even asks if the MC's body didn't feel heady. But our hero says his friend already knew how he was and says that incomplete portals were a huge headache for the association. And after hearing that, the man gives up on arguing and admits it was true. But either way, it didn't matter because he couldn't just let his only friend go into such a dangerous place. But our hero doesn't care, saying he knew it was supposed to be an emotional moment, but he was still going since there was a lot to gain, and Dayak is left confused. The protagonist says that portal rewards increased over time, so dungeons that hadn't been cleared for years had way more XP. So he asks if the only reason the protagonist was going there was to level up, and the MC says that's exactly it. The man starts yelling again, saying his friend had already died once and had to find a safer way. But C says his comrades were waiting for him, and they would do the same if they were in his place. The man says that still wasn't a good enough reason to do something so dangerous, and the MC says that wasn't the only reason. Since he came back as a hunter, he could run into demons at any moment, and he had no time to prepare, because they could show up anytime. And when they did, he had to be strong enough to fight all of them. And after hearing that, the man is speechless, saying he hadn't thought about it from the perspective the protagonist brought up, and he had no idea his friend was under so much pressure. And after hearing that, the protagonist feels a bit awkward, thinking his real goal was actually to beat the hell out of every single demon. Dayak says there was nothing more he could do, so he'd stop resisting and would start looking for portals for our hero. And after a while, he says there was only one portal the MC could enter with his current level. Then pulling up a system window in front of Seo, he says it was a dungeon that appeared 7 years ago, and 142 people had already tried to clear it. And only level 1 players could enter. And reading what was written, the MC says the requirements were simple. In the next moment, his watch vibrates, and Dayak says Seo's payment had gone through. Saying that with that, he was now tied to the association and officially a subordinate for 1 year. After hearing that, the protagonist asks what his friend just said and says he was going to show him who the real subordinate was. And after that, Dayak says he was just joking. Then they start talking about where the protagonist was going to live. And Dayak says that if the MC wanted, he could have the whole floor to himself. Then the man says there was still one more thing he needed to mention, that the MC's armor had arrived. So in the next moment, our hero opens the box and says that the coat was light and also tough. The protagonist was really impressed, saying that armor was seriously good. Dayak says the reason was because it was made by Kwon. And after hearing that, the MC asks if that guy was still alive. Dayak says he was 98 years old. He had passed the forge down to his grandson, but he still worked there. Our hero says that in that case, he wanted to thank the old man personally, but the man says the MC couldn't do that. And after hearing that, the protagonist is obviously confused and asks why. And Duke says they had to stay alert regarding Seo's safety. So our hero asks if his friend was trying to say that Kwon was a suspicious person, and the man says he wasn't suspecting the old man. And after hearing that, our hero falls silent, and I think there's definitely something behind all this. Now I understood the reason for that. It was probably because there were people with Kwon who were spying. Deep confirms it, saying that the demons knew about the relationship between Spectre and Kwon. And if he went to meet the old man, it would be the same as revealing his identity. The MC said he understood since it would definitely be suspicious for a newbie to meet one of the greatest blacksmiths in the world. Deep tells his friend not to worry as he had told the old man he was supporting the protagonist. In getting back to normal, our hero says that since he couldn't do anything else, he would just get stronger and then go see his old friend. He asks the man to say that he was really grateful for sending the armor. Then they keep talking about which weapon the protagonist was going to use and other things like how the sword wasn't from Quan. So it wasn't that strong, but it was good enough for the protagonist's current level. After putting on the equipment, Dayak asks when the MC was leaving, and C says he was going right now. But first, he needed to increase his vitality, thinking that he had used all his energy during the exam. And if his vitality was low, he wouldn't be able to fight the monsters. The man asks if his friend planned to spend a whole month in the dungeon, and our hero says that would be way too long since 10 days were enough to clear the entire dungeon. 10 days later, on Kyonan Mountain in Korea, the protagonist was in front of a portal getting ready to enter, saying he missed doing this. Then in the next moment, he steps into the dungeon area and the requirement was to survive until dawn. And this is the view when you enter a dungeon, guys. If you enter one and it doesn't look like this, it's because Sung is in there. The protagonist's eyes, thinking that it was actually a pretty cozy place, and there was literally a tombstone that said someone had died. Snapping back to reality, he thinks he must be going crazy to call that place cozy. The system says he had to survive until dawn and also be level 1, and the MC thinks it didn't seem hard since the objective was very simple. The goal was simple, just survive until dawn. After looking for information, he found out that those who entered in the morning survived longer, and the time inside the portal was different. Since the people who entered in the afternoon didn't have time to adjust to the time difference and probably had to start fighting the moment they arrived. And in the end, there was nothing they could do since they were all level 1 hunters. And, yeah, that arm on the ground with ketchup on it. But it didn't matter because our hero had already been through all kinds of things. So this dungeon should throw everything it had at him. I think it's nighttime now since a moon appeared in the sky. The NC was thinking he had a weird feeling that he was being watched. And maybe it was from the zombies lurking around. The protagonist thinks it's going to be annoying having to deal with them, but he has no choice. So I guess that's it. And suddenly, a hole appears in the ground and a hand comes out of it. To make things worse, I'm writing this script at night, all alone, cut off from the world, while a zombie grabs the MC's leg. But in that same moment, he smashes the monster on the head, telling the creature to go to sleep because it wasn't time to get up yet, thinking there were probably several of those zombies scattered throughout the cemetery. And the system activates the hunter's vision skill because night had fallen. In that moment, all of the protagonist's instincts were heightened. And guys, I don't know about you, but I'm seriously isolated right now. With the window open beside me while there's a zombie army surrounding the NC, these monsters were tough to deal with. And if you were a new hunter, it would be even worse since zombies didn't feel pain, and one of them already tried to bite CIO. But it doesn't work because in the next second, our hero is already ready and lands a blow with his sword to the creature's neck. And these zombies ignored the damage and only focused on attacking the players. And, yeah, that's right. They just kept advancing toward the protagonist without stopping. Obviously, our heroes send a bunch of red liquid flying through the air. And, guys, check out this panel. I don't know if you'll see it, but the protagonist was really excited to enter the dungeon, thinking he finally understood why they called that place the Rookie Graveyard, and once again, a hole was opening up behind him. This time, it was a female zombie that crawled out. And I don't know if this is a crime, but the protagonist kicks her in the head, saying he wasn't some dumb rookie to be defeated by weak zombies. But guys, check out this army. I don't even know how many there are, but the image only shows 5 with a bunch of silhouettes in the back. I'm not sure if a few hours or just minutes had passed, but our hero was tired. He was leaning on a tombstone, wondering if it was finally over. But then someone suddenly asks who's there. And after hearing that, our hero is surprised. He asks who it is and where the person is. Then he starts looking for the voice again, but the person who spoke doesn't say anything else. Actually, they do, because they suddenly yell, saying they're right over there, and the protagonist runs toward the sound. The guy was buried underground in a coffin, and the protagonist starts digging the dirt away, asking if the voice was coming from down there, and the person confirms it. The MC asks how that man or woman ended up in there. Then the person says they trusted their friends and came here, and all of them were wiped out except for them. But this person was crying, guys, so I think it's a woman. After some silence, Suyu says he understands now, then asks if the person can scream. The extra is confused and asks why they have to scream, and our hero says he needs to know the exact location so he doesn't pierce the coffin in the wrong spot. So the person screams. Right after that, our protagonist pulls out his Glock and shoots the coffin, and he keeps firing. He shoots like 5 times, saying that now he finally understood why it was called the Rookie Graveyard. And guys, it wasn't a cute girl after all. It was some really ugly creature that came out, asking how the boy managed to figure out who he was. But, of course, our boy doesn't answer a thing and already lands a blow on the creature's body, saying there's no way anyone could live inside an incomplete portal. It's explained that once the fight starts, the portal stays closed even if there's only one player alive inside. And the hunters from before probably knew that too, but sometimes acted without thinking. And that's why even if it was just zombies, getting out of that dungeon wasn't easy, and it was all because of the imposter. That was the monster's name. The system says all monsters have been eliminated and the owner cleared the dungeon. After that, the MC levels up 4 times and his stats also increase. Then seeing the stat points barely went up, he wonders if that was really all, and the system says he received the skill Confession of the Dead. With that little smirk, he says he's really happy because he thought he'd get a random item, but instead, it was a new skill. Guys, the skill he got allows him to see the memories of people who have died. Our hero wonders if he got that ability because he defeated the imposter, and it seems the conditions to unlock it were specific. And this was a skill he got as CEO, not under the Spectre identity. Then after that, he smiles, saying he's getting excited about what the future holds. Back to the present, Deke asks if the story the protagonist was telling was really true. Ever since he returned, the higher-ups wouldn't stay quiet, and now he couldn't rest anymore. Our hero says it didn't seem true because his friend looked way too happy. The man says it was great seeing people in the guild frustrated, and the MC says that guilds used to get paid for incomplete portals and asks why they were being bothered now. But the man doesn't answer the question and just asks if the MC was going to reveal his identity, and the protagonist says it wasn't time yet. Dyack says that if people found out he had cleared an incomplete portal, he'd be hunted down, and CO asks if Deke knew why people bought luxury goods. The man says the reason was obvious, because those things were expensive, and our hero confirms saying not everyone could buy them. Dyack asks if his friend was saying he would become a luxury item, and the MC says he was right. Since he'd be someone everyone would want, but no one could find, he was a limited edition legend. The man says sometimes his friend had a terrible personality, but the protagonist doesn't care and just says he couldn't leave things like that for too long. Because smart people would figure it out soon since he would go to other incomplete portals and over time, the dots would connect. And then reporters would start showing up at incomplete portals more often, and he didn't need to be arrogant enough to announce himself since the world would find out eventually. Duke says his friend really had gotten more arrogant in recent days, and the protagonist says he literally just explained that wasn't the goal. But that's when they start talking about food. A few hours later, someone was training. And obviously, it was our hero doing some kind of exercise. I have no idea what it's called. He was already on number 73, but the protagonist couldn't take it anymore. He was about to collapse. And, yes, he does one more push-up, then falls to the ground with the system saying the user's strength stat had increased by 1 point, saying he had finally done it. So since no one's made of steel, the protagonist went to rest. Guys, just look at our protagonist's build. Then he says he finally felt alive again. In the next moment, he starts fiddling with his watch. A bunch of system windows start popping up. Basically, the protagonist was researching what had happened in the Garden of Loaf. It had appeared 9 years ago and was the oldest incomplete dungeon in Korea. If the portal stayed that way for too long, monsters would start coming out, and it would be called an open portal. So the government offered a big reward to whoever closed it. And people from all over the country tried, but even so, there were 124 attempts and all of them failed. So they had no choice but to leave that portal to other countries, and that's how they spent a fortune to hire India's super rookie, who was Tushar. He was a genius with the bow. And in terms of potential, he could even reach Gilbert's level or maybe even surpassed it. But either way, he failed, and everyone lost hope of closing the portal. And so a 22-year-old player with a bright future ahead was eliminated. And that was truly a loss for the world, because in the end, that could have happened to him too. That's why the MC prepared carefully, and currently, all of his stats were above 30. And for now, that should be enough. But if even Tushar failed to close the portal, he couldn't ignore the possibility that there was a hidden threat in there. And because of that, he had to prepare for every possible situation that could happen inside. The protagonist started stretching. In the next moment, he conjured a spell in his hand, saying that now he could even use the freezing skill and had gotten used to it. And he wonders how strong it would be in a real fight. I don't know if this is in the past or if he returned there, but now our hero is in the Garden of Luther and is there again since he thinks he has to eliminate all the monsters to close the portal. And he didn't know how many Loofs would appear, but that group of 4 people failed, so there had to be some hidden trap. But out of nowhere, he starts looking around and looking at that labyrinth made of stone or grass. He thinks it's best to stay far away from that place. Since the monsters came out at night, he was going to rest while he had the time. After a few hours in the dungeon, a tree began to grow from the ground, and it was actually those same monsters our hero had been fighting earlier. They throw some kind of weapon on the ground that I can't even identify. After that, our hero wakes up, and the system says all his senses had been enhanced. I think he was already awake since the protagonist is standing while thinking that only 2 Loofs had appeared so far, and he was excited for the fight ahead. In the next moment, a monster starts attacking the protagonist, and he doesn't fall behind either. He begins charging toward the creature. He lands a hit on the monster's body, and suddenly jumps into the sky, and already begins to conjure an ice spear in his hand. Right after that, the protagonist throws the spear toward the creature. Guys, this attack completely shattered the monster structure. And after that, the protagonist lands as if nothing had happened. Looking at the spear, he thinks his powers were doing great. But suddenly, something attacks the MC, and he dodges, wondering if a monster horde had already arrived. But this time, there were more creatures. Still, as always, the protagonist charged at them. And just look at this panel, all black with the silhouettes of the monsters. But none of that matters because in just one panel, the protagonist already defeats almost all the Luffs and only one of them is left alive. But not for long because our hero charges at him again and gets ready to attack with the ice spear. Guys, the attack was so fast, the monster didn't even see it coming. And right after that, our hero finishes the creature off. The MC stands still, wondering if it was really already over since the fight had been so quick. But actually, that wasn't the case at all, because now twice as many monsters as before had appeared. And now the protagonist was starting to shake, because the loops multiplied after being eliminated. The first panel already shows a bunch of rocks flying. The protagonist is running at full speed while cursing someone, saying there were way too many monsters chasing him. And guys, I don't know what kind of monster this is, because they did say the name. But it sends an attack right at our hero, and it barely misses. He manages to defend himself. I think he's having a hard time, because the protagonist looked both pissed and scared. But in the next moment, he suddenly starts casting a spell. Actually, it wasn't magic. It was a shield that came from his armor. But there were too many attacks heading his way, and obviously after a while, the shield broke. But our hero was already preparing for another strike, and that's exactly what happened. Because in the next second, the monster was sliced in half, and it wasn't one or two or even three monsters. Our protagonist cut down 7 of them, and they dropped to the ground unconscious. Our hero says he was really tired, but it wasn't time to rest yet, because there was still one monster alive right in front of him. He says that the job was tiring, but not impossible, but there was still something bothering him. Because even with an axe rank skill, if the difficulty was only at that level, 4 people would have been enough to clear that dungeon without any trouble. Among the players who had tried to close the portal in the last 9 years, there were many with great potential, and even the super rookie, Tashabishi, had tried to enter the dungeon. From what he had seen, the boy should have been able to eliminate half the monsters by himself. And if he had more people with him, they could have closed the portal too. And as he advanced toward the monster, the story cuts, and the two begin fighting. He prepares that same magic from before. And with one attack, he hits the monster's body. Then the system says the user had completed the Garden of Louth. A few hours later, our hero was resting, saying he had almost been eliminated, but it didn't matter since he was still alive and well. But being the protagonist we know, of course, he was lost and there was a path ahead of him. He kept staring in that direction and walked right into it. Soon after entering the labyrinth, he saw a guy sleeping on the ground. Our hero says he could smell something strange, which as we all know is never a good sign. Then he wonders if those people really tried to escape from there, thinking that the labyrinth had actually been nothing but a waste of time for all of them. Because if they couldn't block the monster horde, it would just turn into a dead end. Looking up at the sky, he's surprised. And the reason for that was because it was the end of the labyrinth. Looking to the side, he sees another person taking a nap. The moment he looks, the protagonist recognizes the bow in his hand, thinking that the name of that item was Storm. But in the next moment, our hero goes silent and picks up the bow from the man's hand, thinking that with that item, if you fired an arrow, it would fly unpredictably and no one knew when it would stop after being shot. Our hero wonders if the person sleeping there was Tasha since the Indian government had given him that bow. Right after that, he's surprised to see a notebook on the ground and picking it up. He wonders what might be written inside. Then he starts reading the man's journal, and the story begins with him saying he had been sent to clear the Luft dungeon, and it shows him saying he could go without any problem. Man tells the boy he should think twice since the portal hadn't been closed after so many years. And because of that, his student might not be able to come back from there. Vichy says he couldn't refuse since the Koreans had come all the way to ask for his help. He thinks that now he was level 10, and it was also his only chance to enter the Garden of Louth, so he had to go. A few hours later, he asks a girl if she was really going with him, and she says she obviously was because she believed in him, and that's why she would follow him wherever he went. Saying that if he said he was going alone, she'd find a way to join him anyway, and she was really happy he had asked for her help. Besides, she also had to protect him. Tasha says he was really happy she was going with him, since besides her, there was no one else he trusted to watch his back. The girl says she already knew that because she was his partner, and the man says that's exactly right. She was the most important person in his life. In the next moment, they stay just like you see them now. And guys, now I'm sad since we already know what fate awaited the two of them. Then they tell each other they would close the gate no matter what happened and check out that ring on her finger. Somewhere else, a child was running while calling for her father. The man was waiting for the child and she asks where her dad was going and the man says he had to go to work. But she didn't need to worry because he'd be back soon, so she should listen to her grandma. But the child makes a sad face after hearing that. She says she understood, but he had to promise that when he came back, they go see the animals. Rubbing his beard against the child's face, he says he would do that, so his daughter had to eat well. But guys, just look at the expression Tasha had while watching that scene. In the next moment, the man says they could leave now, and Vishy apologizes for calling his friend that way. The man says it was the first time he was going on such a long trip, but there was no need to worry since his mother was there to take care of his daughter. And he wouldn't refuse it because this was the first time his friend had asked for that kind of help. Our boy thanks him and guys, I don't even care until the protagonist shows up in the story. I'm calling Tasha our boy. The man says he was going to get ready now that he was heading into an adventure with the super rookie, and Tasha says it was great to hear that. A few days later at India's international airport, the two were walking through the airport while our boy's wife was waiting for them and there was a guy standing behind her. Our boy greets the man and they talk for a while. A few weeks later, Tasha was training with a bow while saying that the next day they would enter the dungeon. Then he shoots the arrow and hits the target. And in fact, the guy hit the bullseye 5 times in a row, thinking he had a good feeling about the upcoming adventure. And on the 24th of April, 2044, they entered the Garden of Loaf. Going back to our boy's story, he was saying that the place was beautiful and it was the first time he'd seen a portal like that. But then he was suddenly surprised, and the reason was because he was inside a dungeon and couldn't afford to get distracted, saying now was the time to observe the place. On the 24th of April, 2044, they were saying that 8 monsters in such a short time was a bit too much. The 3 of them were fighting while saying that now there were 32 monsters and the number kept rising every moment. The 3 were fighting alone against all of them. And out of nowhere, one of those creatures came up from underground. And unfortunately for this guy, his armor was broken. After seeing that, our boy got scared, yelling that everyone needed to run from that place, and they really did run, but I don't blame them. I'd do the same. He was saying it looked like his teammates were fleeing into the labyrinth, but his wife said Tasha should go with them. Our boy was thinking that every time they defeated the Louths, their number increased, and now it was doubling. After one day inside the labyrinth, our boy's friend was lying on the ground asking Tasha to take care of his daughter. And, guys, this was the moment when the first member of our boy's group was eliminated. On the 25th of April, 2044, they made a grave for the man, and one of his companions was eliminated due to his injuries. That same day, the sun was setting. Tasha was praying to one of India's gods, asking Shiva to protect him, but he didn't look well at all. The 3 of them were lying on the ground, and our boy kept writing in his journal, saying they had defeated the 4th wave of Loofs. And now there were at least 120 monsters, and in the past few days, they had been fighting to survive. And there were still about 40 left, thinking that he couldn't handle all those monsters alone. And in the next moment, our boy looks at his wife and gives her a guilty look, telling himself that the next day they would leave that place, begging himself that there wouldn't be a 6th wave. But guys, unfortunately for him, his wife was no longer among the living. The boy was crying, telling himself that he had promised to close the portal, but it didn't make any sense to do it if she wasn't with him anymore. And someone says it was time for our boy to be eliminated, and that man from earlier starts getting ready to attack Tasha. But Tasha sees the reflection of the man in a crystal ball and realizes what's happening. And by a hair, our boy manages to dodge the strike. In the next moment, he takes a fighting stance. The man says the boy really was amazing for dodging and was worthy of being called the rising star. Tasha says the man's eyes were red. He was a demon. Then asked how he could deceive their group like that since it was his wife who had brought him to that place. The bastard says that was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard since Tasha's wife was as stupid as him. She didn't know there would be so many monsters, and that's why she thought of helping them before Vishy's friends died. But even then, they were useless. Our boy gets angry after hearing that. But the man thanks Tasha for closing the portal and says now he should hand over the bow and accept being eliminated. Our boy starts trembling with rage. But in the next moment, he just puts on a strange expression. The man asks if our boy was really afraid of dying, and I think that's exactly it because Tasha suddenly starts running. Even the man is surprised, saying he didn't think he actually run away. But it didn't matter since our boy was going to die from the poison in his body. But it's not quite like that, because in the next moment, he's the one who gets surprised. And the reason was because there was still a 6th horde in the dungeon. But that was also bad for the boy, because now he couldn't feel his arm, and his body was poisoned. And that's when he enters the labyrinth the protagonist had been investigating before. He keeps running without looking back. A lot of red liquid was dripping onto the floor because of it. After running for a long time, he reaches the wall where our hero had found him sleeping. After seeing that, the boy has a terrified expression, thinking he couldn't die like that. But at that moment, he realizes it had all been useless and now this was the end. He writes in his journal that he couldn't move his arm anymore and now it didn't matter because he was going to die, and asks whoever finds the journal to tell their families that they were sorry for failing. And now I don't know how the timeline is supposed to work since our hero was next to Tasha. Either way, this was a story I didn't expect to see, and neither did our hero since he stays silent after reading it, thinking that now he knew what had happened, and as he looks through the notebook, he thinks there are still a few more pages. Then he stares at that page with a blank expression. Our boy was wondering if the rest of his friends and his wife had survived. Would they have been able to close the portal? But it didn't matter anymore because all of it was the demon's fault. And he keeps writing that everything was the demon's fault. Then he starts praying, asking God to make him one with the eternal soul and that all demons would burn in hell forever. And in his mind, he begs anyone who reads that journal to avenge his death. After reading that page, our hero remains expressionless, thanking the boy and saying that he had already figured everything out. Since the number of loofs increased with the number of players and because he went in alone, there weren't many, so he was able to eliminate the monsters easily. And if he had gone with 3 other people, he might not have made it out alive, and just thinking about that made him feel afraid. Either way, the protagonist places the journal in his inventory. And as for Tasha's bow, he would borrow the item for a while, but it wasn't like he was taking it for free or anything like that since he was going to eliminate every demon he found and avenge Tasha's death. Then turning his back, he bids farewell to the honored and glorious young hero of India. The next chapter begins already in Deok's apartment, who was saying that the protagonist had really been right since they hadn't said anything. But even so, now everyone already knew the truth, and our hero looked discouraged, saying he had already known this would happen. DX says he was holding back from saying that at the entrance. The NC asks why his friend showed up so early when he could have just sent a message, and the man says it was more polite to talk about that kind of thing in person. Besides, the Indian government had sent him a message and was thanking the hero for the journal, and the families of the heroes now knew what had happened. The protagonist says that's great, but the man tells him he should stop acting like that and show that he's happy, and the MC says that he really is happy. Ignoring the protagonist, Deep goes on to say that either way, it was a shame that it happened, since the storm bow had been created as a national defense weapon, but it was in Tasha's inventory. After hearing that, the protagonist is surprised and taking the bow from his inventory says it was in his hand. And after seeing that, the man is shocked and asks if his friend had lost his mind, questioning why that item was in our hero's hands since that was the property of the Indian government. Our hero says he had only borrowed it. Diok asked if Siyu planned to tell a country that Tasha had willingly given that item to him, but he says that didn't matter and the MC should decide what to do. And Siyu says he'll use it carefully so his friend doesn't need to worry. But the man yells saying that everyone thought the bow had been lost, and the MC says that's not what he was talking about. Since the issue was the demon it would attract. The man asks if that demon hadn't already been eliminated in the portal, but the MC says he wasn't the only one after the bow since someone our hero knew had probably seen the news reports. But he wasn't dumb enough to believe everything he read because that guy was a lunatic who valued items more than people's lives. And one way or another, he find out the bow was with the MC and come after him. Deok says his friend was absolutely right and there was only one person he could think of. It was the demonic archer, Kalsina. He was a famous guy known for his bow collection, and even other demons talked about him. And because of that, this guy was wanted all over the world. Deok says he didn't meet the level requirements, so he couldn't enter the Garden of Luther. And our hero says that guy would probably work with other demons to catch him at the next incomplete portal. And he'd be stronger than he was when Tasha was still alive. Deok says it would be too dangerous and it would be better to return the bow to India. But the MC says he was getting ready so there wouldn't be any problems and asks if his friend really thought he would be an easy target. And the man falls silent after hearing that, saying that obviously his friend wasn't someone who would be caught easily. But either way, he wanted to make sure our hero stayed safe. Our hero falls silent after that, saying that Dayuk didn't need to worry since he was the first and only CEO and that it wouldn't be like what happened 25 years ago. The man says he understands and adds that his friend really hadn't changed at all. But the next moment, his watch starts to glow. So he apologizes, but says he'll have to refuse the request, saying it would be better to send them back. And after saying that, our hero is confused. He asks what happened, and the man says reporters were going there more and more since everyone had heard the MC closed the portals and now wanted an interview. And our hero tells his friend he shouldn't just send those people away since at the very least, they should choose the battlefield as they were going to fight demons. And for that reason, they would hold a press conference. A few hours later, someone was saying that he was CEO, player from the association, and his first portal had been an incomplete dungeon. And the next portal was also an incomplete dungeon, and it had been a long time since they'd seen a rookie like that. And a woman says Korea might have another great player. Besides that, he also had a knack for attracting attention, and even among many diamonds, he was the one that shined the brightest. The men were surprised, saying he had arrived, but in the next moment, both were even more surprised. And the reason for that was because our hero was walking up on stage, wearing the clothes he wore every day. The two people in front of him wonder if he was really the player who closed 2 incomplete portals or if he had just wandered into the conference by mistake. Our hero thinks that there were a lot of people there, and it would have been better if he had changed his clothes before entering, since he used to dress all sorts of ways when he was the Spectre. But now that felt like a hassle while waiting. He introduces himself and says they'll hold a press conference for half an hour. Right after that, many people start asking many questions, and our hero answers everything they ask. The man thinks it seemed like the boy had already been through this before and was someone experienced in it. Looking at the watch, the MC says he'll only answer one more question, and someone else asks if he has already decided which portal he'll go to next. The protagonist smiles, maybe because he suspects this guy is a spy sent by Cal or something like that. So he says he doesn't know which one he'll go to, but there's one portal he really wants to enter. Though his level is too low and someone asks which dungeon that was, with his usual smile, our hero says it was the East Sea portal. And after hearing that, a one is so surprised she even drops her pen. Then they start taking many photos while wondering if they had really heard that right. The next chapter already starts with them asking if our hero was really talking about that East Sea portal. Since it was the last incomplete dungeon in Korea, and if he managed to close it, he would have completed 3 incomplete portals, which had never happened before. But our hero says they were right, and that's exactly what it was. And after hearing that, those two people from earlier are shocked. Another reporter says that there was a boss there and asks if he had anything to say about that. Another man says the association was planning to declare it a grade 1 portal and asks if he didn't think it was dangerous. The MC thinks it made sense for them to be that way since that was the effect of having a strong boss. And final bosses were on a different level from normal monsters as they were much more powerful, and some even had servants and acted like kings. But that didn't matter in the slightest. So he says that if he fought a final boss, he would win. Someone was reading the news where our hero said he could defeat a boss. The person reading it says everyone was making a fuss over a rookie, and another person says that just showed how important incomplete portals were. The other person says it had been a long time since they had seen something so interesting, and that guy says that if he's interested, he could contact CEO. But the man says he's not interested yet, and in fact, he's far from it. Because when something extraordinary happens, people say it's fate. And if it happens twice, they say it's skill. So he says he thinks people should wait until it happens 3 times before judging anything, and there's no need to remember the names of people who will be eliminated. And after seeing that, the other person was surprised and said they understood. They thought that if the MC pulled off another miracle, he would receive an invitation from Shinsun himself, the leader of the biggest guild in Korea. But the protagonist was calmly reading some papers, saying he didn't want something. It seemed to be an alliance as he asked if all of that was a request for cooperation, and Deok said his friend had become famous because of the press conference. The man said it was really hard to find dungeons with good XP, good drops, decent difficulty, and fair pay. Our hero said they could try the other one, but the man said it wasn't a good idea to help just yet. Then he showed a quest about a father searching for a cure for his daughter who had a serious illness, and the key to curing the girl was the core of a grey fox. Our hero said he hadn't heard that name in a long time, and Deok said that when the MC saw one, he was just starting his career, and C said he was almost eliminated that day. Deok then said there was a national level portal related to the Divine Fox, and after hearing that, the MC was surprised. He showed several system windows saying that to enter that dungeon, someone needed to be level 5, and the maximum number of people allowed was 30. He said the portal had appeared 3 months ago and wasn't even an unstable portal, yet the monster inside had already wiped out 7 groups. The MC said the required level was higher than what he had when he was a Spectre, which made it harder than before. Diok said it wouldn't be that hard since player standards had improved and items were better now. Our hero said he hadn't seen a single good player since he returned, but either way, he trusted his friend. Our hero said he was excited to see the skills of the other hunters, and that's why they would take on that mission. Deok said that was great, as in fact, that request had come from his friend, and our hero asked who that person was. Then they kept discussing who the person who made the request was. The next moment, someone knocked on the office door, and our hero looked confused. Right after that, someone started walking in. It was a woman who asked if the president needed anything. Part 2. DX said she would be the secretary of our hero. The MC thought that if his friend kept doing everything for him, it might seem suspicious. But right after that, she introduced herself. The man said he would be talking to the president of the main group, so the MC should work with CHA since she was trustworthy. A few hours later, they were talking about the Mian group since it had no scandals and a spotless record. Basically, their way of life was perfect. But one day, a tragedy happened. The president's eldest daughter had an illness called the 9-yin syndrome. The MC recognized the name of the disease and thought that the only way to treat it was to fill the patient's body with a lot of young energy. One of the treatment methods involved using the core of the gray fox. And 29 years ago, the Spectre used a gray fox's core and proved that method work. She said the Spectre was someone she deeply admired. The protagonist blushed and she asked why he was so shy, and he said he was just touched by the story. A few minutes later, they arrived. He said many things were still the same. Che asked if he had been to that place before, and the MC said it had been a long time. She told him to wait, as she would go in first to avoid any misunderstandings. But the next moment, someone showed up and asked if the MC was the player, CEO. This person was an old man with the butler. He said it was a pleasure to meet our hero and introduced himself as Choi. Choi was surprised and the protagonist introduced himself too. Choi said it was an honor to meet the player who closed the incomplete portal, but the next moment, our hero was shocked. The reason was that the man's hands were shaking, and the old man said he only had one wish. Crying, he asked our hero to save his granddaughter. Our hero said the man needed the fox core. Choi said that after searching, he found out someone had recovered after using a gray fox core, saying that he was going to offer 15 billion and one as a reward, and that he would also provide any material needed as long as our hero could retrieve the core. Che thought that since the reward was so high, Sua would accept, but in the next moment, the MC refused. After hearing this, everyone in the room was confused. A few seconds later, Choi said he would offer 30 billion and asked if that wouldn't be enough. Seo said there was no need to raise the offer as 10 billion was already enough. And after hearing that, our heroine and the old man were confused. The protagonist said he was doing the same thing the Spectre did 29 years ago. The reason was the same, because no one should take advantage of someone trying to save their family. A few hours later, Shay said she would park the car and the MC should go ahead. But in the next moment, she asked if he had heard that story about the Spectre from the association's president. Trying to cover it up, the protagonist said that was it. Since Diek was a close friend of the Spectre, they kept talking about it. A few seconds later, the woman said that someone like him would definitely do something like that. The MC asked if she really believed the Spectre was a kind person, and she confirmed it. Since he had watched his parents die, and someone offered him 10 billion, but even so, he didn't accept it. And someone who couldn't say their own family wouldn't want others to go through the same. Jumping to the next day, Diek asked how things went with CHA. The MC said they talked for 2 hours and that she was good at giving advice, and the man said his friend would soon see her value and that she could work in any famous company but chose to be there because the Spectre was being cared for at the association. The MC asked where they were. Diek placed his hand on a device, saying that if his friend wanted to defeat a monster on the level of the Grey Fox, then he'd need something useful to help him. And he said that because the two were entering a room filled with weapons, the man said that in recent years, technology had advanced a lot, and they had created weapons his friend couldn't even imagine existed. Diek handed a sword to the MC, telling Seo to try using magic on the sword. In the next moment, the weapon started to release energy. After seeing that, the protagonist was surprised. Diek said that if he used magic on the sword, he would become more powerful and could easily take down and work. He went on talking about a few more things. Our hero asked if players these days only used this kind of weapon. The man said that it was the most efficient for his generation. Seo asked if even the rankers used them, and Diok said he wasn't sure since those people used custom weapons. Our heroes said those things were child's toys. In front of the real monsters that existed in the world, these swords would be useless against creatures capable of tearing apart players' magic. And he asked if his friend knew why weak monsters went to lower levels, saying it was because they'd be wiped out if they surpassed the stronger ones. And it was very ironic, but the system was fair in that sense since players had to grow stronger by fighting enemies of the same power in order to then defeat stronger monsters. Diek asked if his friend thought those weapons weren't good against enemies, and our hero confirmed it. The man said Seo was right because players who only used those weapons never accomplished anything, and they were only good for clearing portals of the same level. EMC said he had already figured that, but then he saw a sword, asking Diek what that was, and the man said it was a weapon made from new materials but wasn't useful. But in the next moment, our hero decided to test the sword, and a huge amount of aura began to emanate from the item. Guys, just so you know, the whole room even started shaking. So yeah, that sword was nuts. After seeing that, the man was shocked. The MC said the world had really gotten fun since players were stupid for limiting themselves like that. A few hours later, there were some things resembling security cameras in front of a portal that had appeared on the street. There were several reporters and some players who were about to enter. Chow said that all the hunters were excited and that 27 more people would be going into the portal with the MC to retrieve the fox's core. After hearing that, our hero fell into thought. He said the tea he was drinking was good and said he wanted to have another cup when he came back. But changing the subject, he said she should wake up earlier the next day, since after the portal opened, he gets several requests to join other groups. A bunch of reporters asking many questions to our hero. While some players were saying it even looked like the MC was a ranker or someone important, they were saying it was hard to believe Sue had closed 2 incomplete portals. And when the interviews were over, a man said his teammates should get ready. After seeing that, the background characters from earlier stopped talking and had serious expressions on their faces. Then right after that, everyone started entering the dungeon. The next moment, they were inside the desert while some players were irritated. But that guy from before said everyone should listen to what he was going to say. The 2 background characters were wondering who that man was. The guy introduced himself saying his name was Yahello and he was a member of the Chinese guild. Turns out that guild was famous since people were surprised and wondered if someone that strong was really part of their group. He went on to say they couldn't do anything alone in that portal. And since his group was big, he had a proposal to avoid fighting among themselves. He said the Chinese guild would give 10 million won to those who follow the instructions inside. But in exchange, they would keep the fox core. And after hearing that, everyone got confused and said that not even for 300 million would it be worth it. But the guys said they were being generous and if anyone changed their mind, they'd only offer 5 million. And right after that, of course, everyone started agreeing, but the MC started walking away. CHA Minute asked if our hero wasn't going to hunt with them, but the protagonist said he planned to go alone. And after hearing that, the guy went silent. A fat man said he had already figured the rumors were exaggerated since someone smart wouldn't want to fight alone in a place like that. But the leader didn't care anymore and just said they should move out. Back to the protagonist, he was walking in the desert thinking that the fox was a boss with 9 tails and that each time it grew a tail, it became stronger to rule over other fire foxes. And since he didn't know how many tails it had, he needed to find a good spot. But out of nowhere, the guy from before had a surprise expression and got into a fighting stance. The reason was that suddenly the sand started shifting, then several fire foxes came out from the hole. The man said they should just get into battle positions and follow the instructions, but the monsters were already attacking and the hunters were scared. Xiamen said now was the right time to strike. The bald man started picking up some kind of metal from the ground. The fat guy from earlier was doing the same thing. It seemed those rods were actually some kind of weapon that shot at the creatures. And when the fox got closer, those items started glowing. The next moment, the fox began to be electrocuted, and it looked like that happened to all the monsters. A woman was surprised wondering if that really worked. Chow Minute had a smile, thinking they were in an advanced era where they didn't even need to fight. And that was the power of second-floor technology. A few minutes later, they said they had already taken down most of them. And if things continued like that, they could easily defeat the grey fox. And the leader was telling them to keep attacking. It was so easy that one bald guy was even chatting with a woman while he was fighting. But in the next moment, a shadow appeared above him. The bald guy was confused. But the next moment, he realized he was screwed. The reason was that a terrifying monster was right above him. He screamed saying the grey fox had arrived. The monster was looking at all the fire foxes on the ground. The next moment, the grey fox started roaring, and the background characters were terrified because the fox had 9 tails, while the one the spectre had defeated only had 6. But the leader said they should focus on the fight and get into position. But everyone was trembling in fear, saying they could do it since a famous guild was with them. Xiamen thought that no matter how strong the monster was, they all had weak points. The trap they had prepared was stronger than anything he had ever made before. And today was the day he would surpass the spectre, because he was going to kill the grey fox. But in the next moment, the creature began spitting out a fireball. All the hunters were on the ground and only the leader was still trying to fight, thinking that none of the weapons he had prepared, or the traps, or even the strategies had worked against the grey fox. And he wondered how they were supposed to kill such a powerful monster since it was an impossible mission. The fox was staring at all the hunters on the ground. In the next moment, it was preparing to spit fire again, while CHA Minute thought he never expect to die like that. But in the next moment, someone stepped in front of him and it was clearly the protagonist. The leader asked what our hero was doing there and said he should run away. Seo said he'd be fine. And in the next moment, he started drawing his sword. The grey fox was still forming the fireball and in the next instant, it fired the fireball. Chow Minute thought that was the end for him. But to no one's surprise, the protagonist managed to split the creature's attack in half, and he had that intense dangerous look on his face. That's when the side character realized just how badass the MC really was. The protagonist's hand was trembling. While he thought that all the hunters had been doomed from the beginning, but he wondered if it was really okay to be satisfied with just that. Then he told the leader that he should take the survivors and get out of there, and Shaman asked what our hero was going to do. After hearing that, the protagonist was surprised, saying it was already obvious what he was going to do. After all, he was going to eliminate the grey fox. In the next moment, the fox started roaring again, and one of the extras told his leader that they should leave. Our hero was expressionless. But right after, he gave a smile as he said that now that everyone had left, they could finally have some fun. The fox was preparing to attack our hero, and in the next instant, it had several fireballs on its back. Guys, other than the fireballs, she really looked like Kurama. In the next moment, our hero began charging toward the monster. The fox started launching several attacks at the protagonist. He kept dodging without difficulty, but then he cast an ice spell and was able to defend himself easily, thinking that it really wasn't letting him get close. But it didn't matter since our hero kept charging toward it anyway. Soon after, it began conjuring another fireball. After seeing that, the MC was scared since that was the giant flame explosion, and he wouldn't survive if that attack hit him. But the fireball was already close to him, and in the next instant, there was a massive explosion. Smoke rises, smoke falls. The creature was looking for our hero, and right after that, it started moving toward the smoke. And the reason for that was because our hero was obviously still alive as he jumped, preparing to attack the fox, but he landed on the creature's nose and got ready to strike. But actually, that's not what happened because the creature was launching a fireball at him, but the protagonist began conjuring ice in the air and kept leaping toward the monster, thinking that the more tails it had, the stronger it would be. So he started freezing his sword even more, saying he would cut off its tails to see what would happen. And that's exactly what happened, because shortly after, several of the fox tails started falling off. With a smile, our hero said that if it had fewer tails, its power would also decrease. Elsewhere, the portal that our hero had entered was glowing red. A side character said it had already been 10 hours since the players had gone in. The last group had survived for 2 days, but then one guy hit his friend, telling him not to say things like that, because the only thing they could do was pray that the hunters returned safely. Back inside the dungeon, there were already several blocks of ice flying around. While the fox was trying to strike the MC with its tail, the hero said this was probably the first time it had ever felt pain since it had never had any enemies and had only killed countless players. I don't know about you guys, but to me, the look Kurama gave there was one of fear. Anyway, the next moment she was already attacking him again, landing a blow on the ground. But to no one's surprise, our hero had dodged it since the creature was confused. He was already charging toward her again, saying that the monster should pay attention to the fight. Right after that, the panel split in two. And the reason was that he had landed a hit on Kurama, and I thought he had finished her with that blow. But the fight wasn't over yet as the fox started conjuring several fireballs again, and she threw them at the MC again who kept dodging. Then he began to charge at Kurama. Things were getting wild since red liquid was pouring out of the creature. In the next moment, Kurama backed off and began casting another attack. But this one was way bigger than the previous ones. Seeing that, even the MC got nervous wondering why she kept resisting. But that didn't matter since he was also conjuring aura and getting ready to strike the fox, saying that it was already too late. And in the next moment, she was hit by several ice spikes. And, guys, I think this time she really was finished since the author used 2 panels for that. The protagonist had a tired expression, and in the next one, he collapsed onto the ground. All the system announced that the user had defeated the grey fox and received its core as a reward. A few minutes later, several reporters were saying they couldn't believe they had really managed to close the portal. Since it only took 13 hours and they finished faster than the last group, a reporter said the portal had turned green and the players were coming out of it. And among all the people, the first player to come out was the leader of the group from the Changi Guild. In the next moment, some people were carrying hunters on stretchers. Someone was giving an interview at the microphone, and the person on the stretcher was the MC. One of the medics asked the background character if he'd like to go straight to the hospital, but he replied no, saying he wanted to give an explanation. Several reporters were asking if it was true that he led the players and asking how he felt. They were asking how it went, whether the fox really had 9 tails and a few other things. The man went silent for a few seconds while thinking that he had finally discovered the feeling of receiving lots of praise even if it was meant for the wrong person. Back in the past, someone was saying they were going to share their hopes and dreams. A woman said her student could go first. Chow Minute said that when he grew up, he wanted to become someone like the hero Spectre. And back to the present, he had a sad expression on his face while saying that he shouldn't be the one being interviewed because now he was going to say what really happened inside the portal. A few days later, our hero was awake. In the next moment, someone said he had finally woken up. That person was Secretary CHA. She asked how he was feeling. The MC said he was fine. The woman said she was looking at the cooperation requests he had received and that he was right about her needing to wake up early. In the next moment, he was already outside, and CHA asked what he was doing, and the MC said he wanted to see President Choi. She said he hadn't fully recovered yet, but our hero said he had fainted just because he was tired since he was going to take a break after visiting the real patient. At President Choi's house, the man said he was happy the MC came so quickly, but asked if everything was really okay since he heard that our hero collapsed inside the portal. CO said he was just tired, so he took a short nap. The president said that was his daughter's room. And in the next moment, our hero walked in with his usual expression. Inside, there was a hospitalized girl, while the MC thought she was in worse condition than he had expected, telling himself he needed to hurry, and then he pulled out the fox core. After seeing that item, the president was startled and covered his eyes with his hands. The MC apologized, saying he had forgotten that normal people couldn't be near cores, and asked the man to wait outside. The president asked if it was really okay to use something like that on his daughter, but the protagonist said he knew a method the Spectre had used, so the man didn't need to worry. And after hearing that, the man asked the protagonist to take care of his daughter. Our hero said that Choi didn't need to worry because it would be quick. After the president left, the MC began walking toward the girl, thinking that she was in worse shape than the person he had healed before. And for now, he would use the heat from the core to melt the ice magic. But in the next moment, he started looking at something. And the reason was that the test showed he was sensing intermediate yin energy from the girl, and he could absorb it using the freeze ability. He was surprised, but the system said that due to the absorption, his magic stat would increase. The NC thought that the freeze skill had no weaknesses and was something that could do everything both in offense and defense, and it could be enhanced if it absorbed yin energy. Not even the S-rank Darkness Watcher could do something like that. This was the first time that this ability would be able to do that, and he wondered if the Watcher had managed to find a magic similar to the Dark attribute. Then he told himself that it would be worth checking out, but he should do it later since for now it was better to take care of the girl. And to do that, he needed to get rid of all the energy inside her body. It was better to do it all at once. So in the next moment, aura began to come out of our hero's hand. He thought that when he was the Spectre, he used yang to dispel the magic, but that put a lot of strain on the patient's body. So now he would do the opposite. He wouldn't push the energy out, but instead, he would absorb it little by little until all the energies in her body came into balance, and that method was much safer than using the core. Outside the room, the president was worried, but the secretary had a strange expression. I don't know what she was feeling at that moment. Still, she reached out her hand to comfort the president. But before doing anything, our hero returned to the room. Choi asked how his daughter was, and our hero said that everything went well and now she was fine with no side effects. After hearing that, the man began to cry, and then he knelt on the ground. A few minutes later, someone said that the MC's vacation would start once they returned to the association. He said he had managed to do everything properly in the mission thanks to her, and then thanked her. But after seeing that, the secretary didn't say anything and just smiled. Back in the past, Choi said he had thought about paying Saya more, but he probably wouldn't accept, and the MC said that just being thanked was enough. The president said he had already decided on the reward he would give. Since when our hero needed anything, the Myungho group would help him no matter what. Basically, that company was South Korea's #1 with influence in every sector. But their real weapon was the fact that Choi's eldest son was the master of the Scarlet Tower Guild, the 5th largest in the country. The MC said he would be careful not to damage their reputation, and after hearing that, the man started laughing. In Deok's company building, he was saying that Choi had called him, and the man was happy because his daughter was better. And he asked how the MC's body was. He replied that he felt some pain, and after hearing that, the man asked if his friend had become a superhero to have that much stamina. CIO said it wasn't like that. It's just that he had leveled up a lot and gained several recovery skills. But in the next moment, he said it was better to get straight to the point. So he pulled out the fox's core, and after seeing it, Dayak was surprised, asking if that was really the grey fox's core, and the MC said that's exactly what it was since he didn't need to use it on the president's daughter because he absorbed the yin energy with the freeze ability. After hearing that, the man was shocked and asked if that was really possible, and the MC confirmed saying that his magic stats had also increased. And he had discovered something great since the freeze ability could absorb yin energy from anything it touched. The UCK said that if that was really possible, then not only diseases like the girls, but he could also absorb energy from items. And it seemed like our hero wanted him to grab a few more items, and the MC said that was exactly it. But there was one thing that could be a problem since the girl's illness was considered intermediate. The man was surprised since if an incurable disease was intermediate, then absorbing energy from normal items wouldn't have any effect. Diok said he would look for good items for the MC, and C said it had been a long time since he heard about the player markets. The player market was a store that operated globally. Basically, it allowed players to buy information and items from other portals, which is why it was popular even among regular people. The MC was thinking that it had been a while since the place was so crowded. Since before, it had been an empty area where everyone was just focused on surviving, and he was glad that now it had such a pleasant atmosphere. But instead of the regular market, he had business to take care of in the black market. A few hours later, there was a fairy singing to an audience and some people were watching it. Our hero was also there, thinking that the player market cinema had a special seat that worked as a teleportation zone to the black market. A few years ago, someone had said that teleportation was rough since anything was possible using portal resources, but teleporting still caused nausea. And that person told our hero that she would use her magic. With a smile on his face, he teleported while thinking that he wished he could see his friends again somewhere else in Ethiopia, in an underground city. An aura began to appear in the middle of the street. Our hero was the one who had teleported, thinking that the vibe was different from a normal market, and only selected people could go there. And right after arriving, people were already fighting. A giant was saying that Kim Wushik hadn't shown up in a while, and they didn't know how long the association was going to keep hiding the spectre. The MC thought that in the black market, there were no guides or vendors since it was an underground world where common sense didn't apply. After walking for a while, some people started recognizing our hero while he thought that he should be careful since that wasn't a safe place. But it didn't really matter since there was little chance he'd meet a player stronger than him since most of the powerful people had already moved up. And the hunters who stayed behind were either too weak to go to the second floor, or they went but couldn't handle the pressure. But there was already a group standing in front of the MC, and he said that people should get out of his way. The background characters remained still, but in the next moment, they moved aside for our hero, and he thought that was strangely easy. A few minutes later, an old man welcomed CIO. Our hero said he was there to look for some artifacts, and the man said the protagonist should check the next display since everything there was artifacts. Our hero thought he wasn't expecting much, but he had nailed it since the system said all the items there were low grade and only one reached intermediate level. The MC said that now that he stopped to think, he remembered hearing from some rookies that the best items in the stores were kept in the separate room. And after hearing that, the old man was surprised saying that wasn't true, and the protagonist replied that he already knew that. And he would just take a look by a few things from there and then could keep it a secret. The old man started walking toward another room, saying he was going to find out who had said that. Then he said the protagonist should head into the other room, since all the best artifacts were there. Our hero thought they all looked really good, but none of them had the darkness attribute. In the next moment, the MC said he had found an item with the ice attribute, and the old man told him not to touch it since they were all frozen. But the MC wasn't affected by that ability, and after seeing this, the man was surprised. The system said that it was an intermediate level item, level 10, that slowly froze the user's body over time. The system said the user was sensing intermediate level energy, and he could purify the item, and the MC was happy. Since the gauntlet was at the same level as the illness, and he would be able to produce the same amount of magic as last time, our hero said he would buy that and use the artifacts from before. Elsewhere, someone was staring in a certain direction. Actually, it wasn't just her. There were other extras also looking the same way. The reason for that was because the MC had asked to be teleported to the market in Korea, and the man said our hero should wait a bit. And then he handed our hero drink while several people kept watching him. In the next moment, someone arrived, saying they knew our hero since he was the player's CEO. He had heard a lot about him, and the MC thought that the black market wasn't a place he could stay in for long. Since a player's reputation was very important, it determined cooperation requests and guild entry. But it was hard to achieve big things in portals, so increasing one's reputation was difficult. And that's why these players were trying to rely on something else. Then in the next moment, someone threw a glass near our hero, saying a superior was talking to our hero and he should show some respect. That he needed to be taught a lesson because thanks to the hunters, the MC could hunt without worry, but was still being disrespectful. As they kept bragging to our hero, he started laughing. The protagonist was really insane because he wouldn't stop laughing. And after seeing that, even the extras looked confused, wondering if he was crazy. The protagonist asked if they were really saying they maintained safe zones because that was something strong players did, and all of them were just rats looking for attention. All they did was go after weak rookies and then put their names in the newspapers. After hearing that, the extra from before got pissed. But the protagonist took full responsibility and said they could all come at him at once because he'd also feel a lot better after beating up trash. The extras had a bunch of weapons in their hands. One person recognized our hero as the guy who had cleared the abandoned dungeons. One of the men asked if they were seriously gaining up on a player who had barely debuted. How pathetic. One of the bastards thought that people could say whatever they wanted because the only thing that mattered was the result. Since our hero had managed to defeat the Grey Fox alone, and if they could defeat him, their fame would skyrocket. The MC asked the bartender how much time was left for the teleport, and the guy said there were only 4 minutes left. The protagonist said that was enough time for them to have some fun. And in the next moment, one of the guys started preparing to attack our hero. He charged toward the protagonist. The man said he was the lancer of the trio and that the protagonist should feel honored to fight someone like him. But the extra asked what our hero was using since he had heard the protagonist was a swordsman. The MC said he didn't need a sword to beat insignificant people. After seeing that, the guy got pissed and started charging at our hero, swearing at him. But as always, Suo was expressionless. Easily dodging the attacks just to show how bad as the MC was, he managed to grab the guy's spear with one hand. Without difficulty, he pulled the man toward him and then landed an elbow strike right on the guy's face. After seeing that, the extras were shocked. Even the group that was starting trouble with the protagonist got scared. And yes, that's exactly what happened. After taking that hit, the guy just passed out. People started saying that the lancer was an idiot who couldn't dodge such an obvious move. Then that orange-haired guy started throwing a bunch of nail toward our hero. But, obviously, the protagonist managed to dodge easily again, rushing toward the extra, who tried to land a hit on the protagonist who dodged again. The two started exchanging a series of blows with the protagonist defending himself. One person thought the MC was just a rookie who had killed some monsters and had never taken a real life, because people without experience always drop their guard when they think they've won, and that's when they get eliminated. And that was the difference between them and regular hunters who never planned to fight to the end. But while he was still insulting the protagonist, the thing we all knew would happen happened. Because Seo was simply stepping on the extra's back, while that guy who was dreaming big was watching. With that baddest expression, he turned toward the orange-haired one. The guy was wondering what had just happened since our hero was supposed to be just a rookie, but he had managed to take them down so easily. After that, the background character began casting a spell thinking this had to be impossible. But it wasn't over yet, because he was still standing and planned to defeat our hero, or at least that's what the guy thought. Because the protagonist was already charging at the guy again, thinking that in the Spectre's generation, the reason he had eliminated so many enemies was because of the skill he had gained that allowed him to read people's breathing. The MC was simply defending against all the guy's attacks while getting closer and closer. And after seeing that, the background character got scared, but it didn't matter at all since our hero was already right in front of him, saying the man's attacks were way too predictable. And right after that, he pinned the guy's hand to the wall with a dagger. Guys, to give you an idea, it was wild. There was a ton of red liquid pouring out of the guy's hand. The protagonist stood in front of one of the background characters he had taken down, said he never wanted to see them in front of him again. The guy was terrified and said they would never go near our hero again. The MC stayed silent after that, but in the next moment, a bunch of people started shouting that the new hunter had actually won. And it was something unheard of because a rookie had managed to defeat 3 experienced hunters. It was incredible. The NC thought the world had become strange since people were acting like players inside a game, eliminating each other for selfish reasons and even applauding the winner instead of tending to the injured. The portal to transfer him back to Korea was already ready, but he kept thinking that there were only 3 ways to survive in this world. One was to go insane like everyone else. The second was to suppress all emotions, and the third was to simply suffer in silence while being humiliated by everyone. Anyway, none of that mattered now since we were back in Korea. After exiting the portal, the protagonist was stretching while thinking that his body really had become stronger. Then he sighed in the next moment, saying that he really missed his old friends. Elsewhere, someone was watching the video of the protagonist fighting those background characters. A man said the MC had defeated 3 players who were level 20 and that he had exceeded expectations. He called the girl princess and asked her what she thought about it. Guys, I think a new pain in the ass character is coming. She gave that arrogant smile while asking the man what our hero's name was. Elsewhere, our hero had a tired expression. The reason was that a girl was taking a picture with him and it wasn't just her. There was a huge line waiting. The MC thought that if things kept going like this, he wouldn't make it to bed before nightfall. But suddenly, the girl who had just appeared asked if that was really player CO. She said she'd like to talk to the protagonist for a few minutes. After seeing her, our hero was a little curious, thinking that he recognized that light orange hair and the strong heat aura he could feel just from getting near her. And there was only one person who matched those traits, one of the members of the 6 great guilds, the Dokibi princess. Her name was Gonju. Guys, I don't know if it's just me, but after hearing Dokibi, I thought of omniscient reader's viewpoint. In the next moment, the girl handed a card to our hero and said it had her contact info. Our hero thought it was a good thing that she had her eyes on him. The girl invited our hero to a cafe and he accepted, thinking that he needed to leave that place or else he wouldn't make it home anytime soon. A few moments later, inside a shop, she was saying that she hated the heat but still had to wear masks. And the MC asked if her ability wasn't fire-based and she said that was exactly the problem. She actually liked colder things. People said that even demons feared her and he wondered if this kind girl was really the Dokibi princess. In the next moment, our hero asked what the Dokibi guild wanted with him for their leader to come in person. But getting straight to the point, she asked if he would like to join them. Our hero said that was really fast and the girl replied that the vice leader had said it was better to recruit that way since it took less time. She said she had planned to decide if the MC was worthy after talking to him and the protagonist had passed. Our hero asked in what sense and she replied that the first was his achievements since only those could generate enough merit for her to come personally. And the second was that he was the famous super rookie who had appeared. The MC thought he understood since no one at his level had done the same, and the girl added that he was also good in combat sense and had great potential for the future. Seo asked if she had already seen what happened in the market, and she confirmed it, saying she liked it because he was good in battle. His skill was actually weapon mastery at grade D, and our hero confirmed it, but thought to himself that it was just from the fake profile. She said that if that were the case, then she wanted him even more, because he was already that strong with just a D grade skill. If he gained more skills, his potential would skyrocket. And in her guild, he would have access to many skill books, and the coordinators would even create a personalized training plan for him. The MC thought that was amazing, realizing there were not only resource benefits, but even the salary was higher than at the association. And that's why strong hunters left the association, and now he understood that there was another reason guilds were after him too. Chu said they were one of the strongest guilds in the world and had more information about the second floor than the association. And she asked what he thought of her proposal, then waited for the protagonist's answer. With a smile on her face, she thought there was no way he would refuse since her guild was .kb, and she had even come personally, thinking our hero was about to accept. She was already starting to welcome him, but the protagonist refused. After hearing that, she was confused and asked why. MC thought that if he joined her guild, he could gain fame and fortune, but nothing in life was free because their orders would be absolute, and he would be forced to do every mission. The girl asked if the MC hadn't understood what she said, and he replied that he knew her guild had made him an offer. And she said she already knew that and asked why he refused. And our hero said it was better to be at the top of something bad than at the bottom of something good. And after hearing that, she said she understood, thinking that the MC was smarter than she expected. Since if he joined her guild, it would take him a long time to rise in rank. Because in a place where only the elite are admitted, the competition would be brutal. The girl asked if he really wouldn't join, and our hero apologized again. As she walked away, she said she understood and couldn't force him anyway, and told him that from now on, he should be careful. He asked if her guild would really want revenge, and the girl said no, that they weren't that childish. Since the demons were the only ones more active at the moment, even on the first floor, the MC asked if they were planning something, and she replied probably yes, since the association probably didn't know yet. And he should be careful with the demons, or else she'd be disappointed in him. After that, the protagonist thanked her, and she walked away saying she'd see him another day. And guys, I'll be real with you. I thought this girl would be a pain in the ass, but she actually turned out to be pretty decent. After the girl left, our hero was smiling. A few hours later, Diek was asking if the demons had started moving again, and the MC said that Doc Gabe had no reason to lie. The man said he knew their intel was good, but not that good. And he asked if his friend wouldn't regret turning down the offer since she had come to see him personally since he had no interest in fame or money. After hearing that, Diek got sad because he realized he'd have to keep doing everything our hero told him to, and the MC asked why his friend looked so down. Then the next moment, the man said that Doc KB would be much more useful to the MC than the association. The protagonist said he preferred to stay with the association since he could do whatever he wanted there. And in the guild, he have to follow orders. And after hearing that, the man had a strange expression. Diok said they were going to renew the contract and give the protagonist an entire floor. And there wouldn't be any problem with that since they had plenty of money to pay our hero. And now they were going to start gathering more information to match the biggest guilds. Our hero gave a smile and thanked his friend for putting in the effort. Then they continued talking about a few other things. Then the MC told Diak to schedule a raid on the sea portal for the next week. The The man asked if his friend was going after the demons, and our hero said he was just going to start by being the bait, because that was how they managed to catch the big fish. Someone was saying that our hero was going to try to close the Eastern Sea portal. In a news report, a man said that had never been done before, and if he succeeded, Korea would become the first safe region in the world without any incomplete portals. Another person said the Korean Association confirmed they had renewed the contract with Seo and strengthened their partnership. They were even discussing what the success rate would be for our hero on this mission. But somewhere else, someone turned off the TV. Guys, I don't quite remember, but I think this guy is that archer who was after the item Tasha used. It looked like he was in a cave as he began walking toward the light, but actually, he was on top of a mountain. In the next moment, he said someone should appear, and suddenly an aura started rising from the ground. The guy who appeared out of nowhere looked like that statue from Solo Leveling when Sung faced the architect. So I'm just gonna call him the architect. After seeing Seo's face, the man asked who the boy was, and the red-haired human said the MC had the storm bow. The architect said they were told the bow was in Tasha's inventory, but Sina said the protagonist had hidden that information from the public. Since he was the one who discovered proof that Tasha had been eliminated, he would be careful with the demons. The architect asked if he should head to the first floor, but Red Hair said there wasn't enough proof yet, and it wasn't worth the risk. And he asked if there was anyone else they could use to eliminate the protagonist. The architect said they had the Shadow Brothers, and the two of them were power-hungry and very strong together. Sina said they should go to the Eastern Sea portal, and it didn't matter if they eliminated our hero. But for some reason, suddenly, the guy's eye glowed with a terrifying aura, and he turned around. It seems someone was spying on him because he suddenly looked up at the mountain. And that's exactly what was happening since he gave that crazed look, saying that the Sword Saint was around, so the architect should get ready to leave. And after saying that, he simply vanished. Sina thought that even as an archer, he wouldn't be able to hit the Sword Saint from that distance. And if it weren't for him, he would have already recovered the storm bow, and he told himself that he would see our hero fall and be eliminated. Elsewhere, our protagonist was working out while wondering if Sina had taken the bait, since it was suspicious that the Shadow Brothers went into the dungeon pretending to be medics. But it didn't matter since he could have keep an eye on them. And while he was breathing, suddenly, a terrifying purple aura started coming out of the protagonist's body. He was thinking about spreading the aura across the floor to train magic. And even though it was dangerous, it was the fastest way to get stronger. And it was like his friend was speaking to him through that element since he wouldn't be able to handle everything using just the Darkness Watcher's power in the portal. Guys, basically, name of the portal is Island of the Forgotten Dragons, and the MC thought that just by the name, it was obvious the final boss would be a dragon. And dragons were powerful monsters, and it was a boss that rookies couldn't even touch. But the objective was simple since he needed to defeat the nameless dragon. He had already tried fighting dragons a few times, but it was complicated since they couldn't fly. And he'd have to cling to the dragon's body, not on its back, or simply find a way to bring it down. But while he was thinking about these things, our favorite secretary had already managed to gather information on the Shadow Brothers. Basically, our hero started reading their names, and they were a duo from the United States. What they mainly did was escort powerful people and had completed over 200 missions, and both had shadow-based abilities. But at least that's what was said in interviews. Guys that can't even lie properly, they claimed they wanted to enter the portal because they felt the MC's determination. They went on saying they were impressed by the protagonist's words since he was a player who did the impossible, and they were honored to help him close Korea's last incomplete portal. The protagonist was wondering if he would be able to use that. A few days later, in front of the East Sea portal, there were a lot of people. Deok said there were even reporters from other countries, and that showed the whole world was interested in that dungeon. He asked if the MC was nervous, and our hero said he was very nervous. After hearing that, the man was surprised, asking if his friend was really nervous. Our hero said he couldn't play because his phone kept lagging, and they went on chatting about other things. Then the man told our hero to pay attention since there were about 500 reporters there. The protagonist said he had already defeated the Ice Queen, and he wouldn't get nervous over a nameless dragon. Deok said our hero wouldn't be alone since the Shadow Brothers were also there. And since there were no other people, it was obvious they were working with the demons, and they were very strong. And he wanted to cancel that dungeon because he felt something was off. The protagonist said his friend didn't need to worry because even if he was attacked, he had a plan. A few minutes later, the two greeted our hero saying they were fans of his. They had heard that he managed to close 2 full portals alone, and that was amazing. Our hero said it wasn't a big deal, and after hearing that, the man was surprised. The reason the man was surprised was that our hero spoke in English. The man said he didn't know the MC spoke English, and the product said he had a friend who lived in England. The long-haired guy said he was worried because the interpretation system they used took a while to translate. But it didn't matter because now they were going to close Korea's last incomplete portal and they would give it their all. The protagonist said they didn't need to worry because he was prepared for any type of situation. Deok was watching while a reporter commented that the three were doing well. A lot of people wondered when players got nervous, and the answer was when they entered their dungeons, since they never knew what kind of monster would be in there. That's why they were already prepared for anything that might happen inside, but there was a risk that few people knew about. That risk was that because hunters were so focused on the fight, they didn't pay much attention to attacks that might come from allies. And after our hero turned his back to him, the long-haired guy was already getting ready to attack. But out of nowhere, he stopped. After seeing that, the long-haired guy's brother was confused. The guy had a scared look on his face as he wondered if our hero really had even a single opening. And guys, check out this intense expression from the NC. The long-haired guy just stood there watching while the protagonist kept walking. But in the next moment, all the mist began to dissipate. The guy got irritated, thinking he had missed a good chance. And since I don't remember the other guy's name, I'll call him Shampoo. Shampoo was wondering if they were on something like an island. The long-haired guy told his brother that they had failed and would have to wait for another opportunity. They were talking about how they hadn't expected a place like that to exist inside the portal. They were even looking around for the dragon since they couldn't see any monsters there. And then Shampoo asked the NC if he had seen anything yet. But the protagonist was just thinking that something felt off since the boss of the portal didn't even have a name. But he was feeling a sensation he hadn't felt in a long time. It was the feeling a one-star portal. And out of nowhere, a giant shadow passed over them. And after realizing that, the two brothers became frightened. Even the protagonist was shaken to his core. After seeing that, Shampoo looked up, and guys, there was a giant dragon. The long-haired one asked if that was really the nameless dragon people talked about. Even Shampoo was scared, saying that creature was really massive. But in the next moment, the long-haired one asked our hero how they were supposed to take down that dragon, except the protagonist wasn't there anymore. And after realizing that, the two brothers were shocked. The MC asked if they really couldn't even sense his presence. And after looking up at the sky again, the creature was still flying while the system announced that the forgotten dragon had appeared. Lightning bolts were falling everywhere, and the long-haired guy barely managed to dodge. Our hero was up in a tree watching, saying it was time to see if the two of them were working with the demons or not. The two brothers were barely dodging the lightning, while the long-haired one thought there was no other option but to use his power. And in the next moment, he started summoning several shadow soldiers that rose from the ground, telling his brother that he would distract the dragon. And so Shampoo should go find our hero, and he should bring the protagonist back the moment he found him. So Shampoo started searching for our hero. All the long-haired one skeletons fired multiple spears at the dragon, which started flying away after being hit. Shampoo was running through the forest, wondering when was the last time a mission had turned out like this. Because if it was anything like their last problem, the two of them wouldn't survive. But in the next moment, he was startled by something. And the reason was that there was something like a shadow behind a leaf. And after seeing it, Shampoo said that since the MC was a rookie, he couldn't even choose his own aura. But he kept pretending he hadn't seen anything while asking if our hero was around. He already had a sword in hand, saying they needed our hero's help to face the dragon. But after getting closer, he charged toward our hero, saying they should go fight the dragon. But, obviously, it wasn't the protagonist, and after that strike, a black aura began to rise. There was smoke behind the plants. Shampoo thought the trees made the place dark, and it was perfect for using shadow abilities there. While he kept looking for the protagonist, he started feeling a strange sensation. After a while, he was wondering what was going on since the protagonist's aura was strong, but had disappeared, and he couldn't feel anything anymore. But in the next moment, the protagonist said it was a shame they turned out to be demons. And after hearing that, Shampoo got scared and turned around, wondering when our hero had gotten that close since he hadn't sensed a thing. The man asked what the MC was talking about, and the protagonist said he already knew the two brothers were demons. Shampoo told our hero to stop joking around, saying they only attacked because they were betrayed first. The protagonist said that was a good argument. But before saying stuff like that, the man should have hidden the red eyes, those scarlet eyes of demons. After hearing that, Shampoo covered his eyes while wondering if he had lost control since no one had ever suspected him, and that's why he never worried about it. Our hero asked if the man really couldn't even control that. But Shampoo didn't care and said the protagonist was naive to think he'd run after being exposed because that would be a very cowardly way to die. Then in the next moment, several shadows began to appear on the ground. Demonic clans almost never showed up in portals, but if they were defeated and you drank their fluid, you gained demonic energy. Basically, you get stronger in exchange for giving up emotions and you've received an ability. Shampoo began preparing several green arrows and in the next moment, he attacked the protagonist. But our hero didn't flinch one bit and remained still. And the closer the arrows came, the more expressionless he looked, until he used the shadow ability, and I don't even know what happened here. But suddenly, the protagonist turned into a cloud of mist. After seeing that, the man was surprised. Then he started looking around to see where the protagonist could have escaped to. But in the next moment, the MC was already behind Shampoo, saying that at first, he was just hiding his presence. But the man didn't care about what our hero was saying and simply hit him again. Yet once more, the protagonist turned into mist. He said that over time, he got used to it and began to rely on other senses like instinct, sound, smell, and magical aura. Then he asked Shampoo what he thought was coming next. Back to the fight between the long-haired guy and the dragon, he was thinking that the dragon of forgetfulness never left the clouds. But the next moment, he looked to the side and saw Shampoo emerging from the tall grass. The long-haired one asked his brother what had happened, and the man said there was something strange about the protagonist, since he knew the two of them were demons and the MC was hiding his true power. The man asked how his brother had even escaped if our hero was so powerful. The two kept arguing about how our hero was strong in hiding his powers, but the long-haired guy said it didn't matter now because their focus had to be on killing dragon. Shampoo asked if the monster was really that strong, and the man said all attacks were useless against that creature. But the monster had one weak point, the reverse gale. Shampoo said he'd use shadow movement to get to it. But before they could do anything, the dragon was already approaching. Just like the grey fox, it was conjuring a lightning orb from its mouth. The long-haired guy told his brother to dodge, and just barely both of them managed to survive as everything around them was destroyed. Even the skeletons, which looked like they were made of mist, were vaporized. After that, the long-haired one started spitting red liquid since he took soul damage because his knights had been eliminated. Seeing that, Shampoo grew worried, but the man told his brother to focus on the real objective. Then the man began summoning a shadow arrow and prepared to strike. The next moment, he held the arrow with the dragon, but even with the attack coming at it, the beast didn't flinch and stayed still. It literally took the hit to the face, but it had no effect since the dragon was still fine. Shampoo said he missed the attack and now the creature was flying straight at them. So he used shadow movement and started leaping into the air. Moments later, he pierced through the dragon's body, wondering if he was still rising even higher. But the protagonist was watching, saying that the two were real idiots. The long-haired guy saw the dragon circling around the island. I don't know what happened, but suddenly Shampoo reappeared all beaten up, saying they were all dead and wouldn't be able to escape. Right then, the dragon was heading straight for the two of them, while the protagonist kept watching, saying that the dragon would react like that if someone attacked its reverse scale. Since people who had never fought the dragon always made that mistake, touching anything near the scale would make it go berserk. And if it was angry, that item that our hero didn't want to show us might not be enough. So he said he would use the bow, and aiming at the dragon, he said the demons had to stay alive so they could buy time. Then with a smile, he said he would wait for the right moment. Shampoo was barely dodging the attacks, while the long-haired guy couldn't fight properly anymore either. They kept wondering when the dragon would stop hurling lightning orbs, or if the dragon of forgetfulness's attack was infinite, thinking that maybe all their chances were really gone. Suddenly, something flew toward the dragon and actually hit it, because the monster let out a scream. Seeing that, the two brothers wondered if our hero was helping them. The long-haired one thought it would be complicated for the MC if the two of them died since he wouldn't be able to beat the dragon alone. Whether he liked it or not, the three had to work together. He told Shampoo that the dragon would start focusing on the protagonist and he should take that chance to retreat. Then Bob started attacking the two of them. After seeing that, our hero started laughing, saying that the two of them really preferred to run away instead of fighting back. And, obviously, they were trying to make Bob focus on him. And, from now on, I'm calling the dragon Bob since I'm the one writing the script and I get to decide the name. Then the NC says that what they were seeing was just a mirage. So he keeps firing several shadow arrows. The protagonist really doesn't stop, he just keeps shooting arrows. After a few minutes, he says it's enough. And now he's going after the two brothers alone. The hairy guy was cursing our hero, wondering why he had suddenly stopped attacking Bob. The protagonist was laughing, saying it suited them to run away like rats. The two of them ask why our hero was even there if he wasn't going to provide support, and the MC says he'd already had. There were several arrows flying through the air, and some of them even hit Bob's body. Actually, a lot of them were hitting the dragon. And after getting struck by so many arrows, it crashed to the ground. Guys, the protagonist has a crazy bow. He landed every arrow he shot the dragon. And after that, even the two brothers turned to look at the scene, thinking they couldn't even scratch Bob, but the MC managed to do it easily. The protagonist asks if the two side characters weren't impressed, since Storm really was an amazing bow, and now they understood why Senior wanted to steal it. After seeing that, the two fell silent. The hairy guy says they helped in the fight, so they should talk since they were just henchmen, and they would tell where Senior was if the MC let them escape. The protagonist says he didn't care since he had no interest in getting info from Trash, thinking that the two couldn't be allowed to flee since they had already seen too much. Shampoo asked if the protagonist really thought the two of them were easy targets, then he started advancing toward our hero with a lamp in his hand. But the protagonist didn't care. With a single strike, he did something wild to the guy's arm, and it seems it wasn't just his arm because even his head rolled off. After seeing that, the hairy guy was terrified, then he charged at the NC, but the protagonist easily stopped his attack. And in the next moment, he pierced the guy's body with his sword. Our hero did it without any trouble and managed to take out the two extras, saying that if they reincarnated, they should reconsider what they'd done. The hairy guy says that shouldn't have been possible, but the protagonist turns away unfazed and looks toward Bob. With aura radiating from his sword, he prepares to land the final blow, but the dragon had a look in its eyes like it was begging for mercy. After seeing that, our hero is confused, but he doesn't care. And in the next moment, he strikes the creature. This is when the MC finishes off the forgotten dragon. And right after that, the system says that our hero has eliminated the nameless dragon. The system says he received 20 kilograms of dragon bones and leveled up. Our hero says he could finally test his new skill. Its name was Dawn's Curse. It's the ability he got while inside Tosha's dungeon. In case you forgot, this skill lets the MC see the memories of dead people. So right after that, he tells Shampoo to confess all his sins. The system says the user has received Vincent's memories and announces that the Dead's event has begun. A screen appears in front of our hero and is surprised, saying that it looked more like a movie and he could even fast forward or rewind. So he tells the system he wants to see the most recent memories. He sees an injured person asking why they were doing that to him. And right after asking, the person is killed. Then the MC sees several more memories of people begging for forgiveness, for mercy. So he tells the system to stop showing that stuff and says to himself that maybe he shouldn't have taken out those two people so quickly. Then he tells the system to show anything related to the demon association. Now we are going into a flashback, guys, or at least it looks like it. Since the hairy guy opens a gate somewhere and starts walking towards someone, it looks like this person is an old man who tells them they should go to Korea and follow our hero. The hairy guy says they were already preparing for the Las Vegas auction, but the old man says it doesn't matter what he says since he's just a messenger. Our hero said he now understood where the orders had come from since that was one of the places where the demon association operated, and he wondered if there was still anything else useful he could find. So he opened another memory from one of the two. Someone said they liked the look in their eyes and would turn the two into second-rate items, giving them power. But after seeing that person's face, the protagonist started feeling sick. The system said the skill level was too low and had been deactivated for the user's safety, and the MC was left wondering who that person was. Because it seemed like a higher-ranking demon, and if he wanted more details, he would need to evolve his skill. Then he thought there was still one more thing, since he could use this ability on monsters as well. And a dragon was such a powerful being, it couldn't even be compared to the fox and should already have a name. So he activated the memory ability, saying he wanted to know what kind of being the forgotten dragon had been. A monk said it had already been 5 years since the war between the three nations had ended, and people praised the king for managing to represent peace. Bob said that the two of them already knew that the war wasn't really over since the Great Republic was still pushing through the lands from the north. And while the two kept talking, the MC was surprised. As they kept talking, Bob started coughing up red liquid and asked if his friend knew the legend of Rion. The monk asked if that wasn't just a superstition, and Bob said he used to think so too. Because if the Great Republic had a dragon like that, then their people would also need one to be protected. So he asked the monk that if he died, to cremate him and throw him into the sea so he could become a dragon to protect everyone. The man said Bob should think about it and not reject the blessings of the gods, samsara, and karma. But Bob said he had lived his whole life in lust and at some point, he would become a beast. And since that was his fate, he'd rather become someone who risked himself for the people. After seeing that, our hero was surprised, wondering if the forgotten dragon had really been human and if he had truly become the guardian of the nation. That would mean he was the first governor to ever exist in China. Then more system messages came in, saying the user had witnessed a part of Scylla's history. In the next moment, the MC knelt down and began paying respect to the forgotten dragon, saying that land was now safe and that he could finally rest in peace. After saying that, the creature's scales began to glow, then suddenly flew up into the sky. After seeing that, the protagonist was stunned, while Bob said the boy had prayed for him, and the system announced that the user had completed a secret mission from the nameless Dragon Island and had received the Tide Breath Flute and the title of Helper of the Ascension. Our hero was wondering if that really had been a secret mission since he hadn't even leveled up yet. He'd gotten a unique item and had never imagined he'd get something so good. And our hero said it hadn't been so bad to make a mistake. Then the portal turned green and there were several reporters gathered. One of them was saying the MC had come out alone, which meant the two brothers were dead. They were discussing among themselves that no matter how successful a career was, you could never predict death. A few minutes later, our hero walked onto the stage, and the reporters were saying they were going to listen to what he had to say. Right after stepping in, several photographers were already taking multiple pictures of the MC. Then he began by saying that the reason he came out of there alone was entirely his fault since they had gotten lost inside a labyrinth within the portal and the entrance was very far. And when he finally managed to find the exit, the dragon had already eliminated both brothers, and if he had gotten out sooner, somewhere else, someone was watching our hero saying he would never forget the two, since they had been great friends even though they had only known each other for a short time. And after hearing that, Sana got irritated, saying the protagonist was really lucky. The architect asked what they were going to do about the Las Vegas auction, and Sana thought to himself that he had been the one who decided to send the brothers. And now the first attack had to be prepared since the hound dogs were supposed to go to the second floor, and the architect confirmed that. But the red guy said the plan should be cancelled, and the architect was surprised. Sana said there was no need to worry about the executives because the only thing that mattered was the result. And even if he probably got beaten up, it was still better than failing, so they should send the hound dogs to the Las Vegas auction. Back to the protagonist, he asked the secretary why she hadn't organized the cooperation requests. And with sparkling eyes, she says she had organized them. The MC asks if all of that was cooperation requests, and she confirms. The protagonist says it didn't help much. And Chase says that's what the reporters might say. But for players, luck was also a skill. And there was one more thing, because now it was time to cut his hair, which had grown too long. After hearing that, the protagonist is surprised while trying to say it wasn't necessary, but she keeps insisting and starts fiddling with her watch. She shows several men and says they were famous players. And even though their careers weren't great, they still weren't sloppy. Since he had a day off, they could take advantage of it to go cut his hair. Then she hands him a business card, and with sparkling eyes, she asks him to go get a haircut while the MC thinks he misses wearing the mask. Our hero says she could go home early. She asks if he was serious, and the protagonist says she had already worked enough organizing the documents. Then with that cute expression you're seeing, she leaves right away. After seeing that, the protagonist says she really got excited while wondering if his hair was really that long. A few minutes later, the MC was thinking it wasn't so bad going to a salon. But when he was the Spectre, it was much easier. Because back then, it didn't matter what salon he went to. When he took off the mask, no one recognized him. But now things had changed a lot, and he looks at a news report about him marrying. The protagonist thinks he should take a few more days off, so he enters a bookstore, thinking that like every other time, there wouldn't be anyone there. After that, the protagonist starts taking off his mask, thinking that it looked like the owners there were almost going bankrupt. Our hero was heading to the spot where he always sat, and he could eat while reading. But in the next moment, he saw a girl. She was eating something. She was thinking that it was way too exaggerated since it was just a novel. After all, it didn't make sense for them to find her professor after so many years in a random place. Something like that was nearly impossible to happen. And in the next moment, the MC asks if she was Secretary CHA. After hearing that, she was startled, getting surprised when she saw the protagonist was reading a book while glancing at CHA from time to time, saying that he wasn't going to leave even if she kept looking at him like that. After that, she had an embarrassed expression, then slammed her book on the table, saying there was nothing wrong with reading the book she wanted since ancient people used to say the universe was hidden in books. The protagonist agrees, saying she wasn't wrong, but he didn't think the universe she was talking about was hidden in that book. And the title of the book was The SS Rank Addict Who Trained for 990 Million. She asks what he was reading to say something like that, and our hero says it was obvious. But after remembering, he thinks it wasn't that much better. So our hero says they could call it a tie, then she asks to see the title. After seeing which book our hero was reading, she starts laughing, saying it wasn't so different from hers. A few hours later, the protagonist got tired of reading and said that had been great, then asked Chia if she had finished too. With a cheerful expression, she confirms. Our hero sighs, saying it was a bit surprising, and she asks if he meant he was surprised to see her in a manhwa shop, and he confirms since he'd heard she was part of the elite and had assumed she stayed far away from places like that. Jess said that most people really did think that way, but it wasn't true because she liked that place since she could read without being disturbed. And the feeling of flipping through the pages was also really nice. They kept talking about how good reading was and a few other things. Then her watch started vibrating. Jess said it was already very late, so she was going to leave, and the protagonist asked if she wanted a taxi. She said she didn't need one since she lived nearby, and the MC said she really worked hard and that he'd better do the same instead of slacking off. In Dayuk's company building, someone was talking about the United States. Dayuk asked if the MC wasn't thinking about going to the brother's funeral, and the protagonist said no since he had no reason to, and the man asked why his friend wanted to go there. Our hero said he had discovered one of the places where demons gathered, and after hearing that, Dayak was shocked. Then he asked where it was, and our hero said it was a secret since he would go there himself. The man said he was worried, and our hero asked why. Duke said he was concerned about the demons being eliminated before the MC could get the information. The MC said he would be careful about that, but he remembered the old man from before, thinking he seemed low-ranking but was probably useful. Duke said if his friend needed help, he should ask. And our hero said he always needed help, then opened his inventory. In the next moment, he threw several dragon bones onto the table, saying those were Bob's bones, which he had gotten from the eastern portal, and his friend should use half and give the rest to Quan to forge a new sword. Diok said he understood and asked if there was anything else to say about the sword size and weight. While walking away, our hero said it was the same size and weight as last time. But before actually leaving, our hero said he had a message for the old man, telling him that Quan should retire if he couldn't remember the sword's measurements. Elsewhere, the protagonist threw himself on the bed while reading the messages he had sent to the secretary asking for a ticket to Las Vegas. After seeing the sticker she sent, our hero laughed and said it was time to check the items he had obtained. So he took out the Thai juice flute, and there was a line saying it could only be used 3 times, and the MC thought that was a shame. But even that showed the item was very powerful, and the title of Quest Helper had boosted his stats. The protagonist said his magic stats were really good. And if things kept going this way, it wouldn't be long before he could use the aura sword since it required a deep understanding of magic. And now he could learn faster than before. And if things continued like this, he could swim without any issues and might even list himself as third once he mastered the aura sword. So he wondered if when that day came, he would finally be as powerful as the gods. The MC thought he wanted to know how the strongest players were doing after 25 years, and also how powerful the demons had become since he was sealed away, because he was very excited to find out those things. A few days later in Las Vegas, the protagonist stood in front of a casino, thinking about how long it had taken to get there, and now his body was sore. If Sky were around, they could have just teleported. Looking up, he thought that place attracted a crowd because celebrities always went to the artifact auction. That was also why he was there. Then he sighed, opening the GPS on his watch. He thought it was farther than he expected, and he should head over, get it over with, and rest after it was all done. Somewhere else, someone was messing with the air conditioner, and it seemed to be that same old man asking when the electrician would fix it. Because nothing was working, the brothers had failed, and now even the hunting dogs were acting like that, and he never thought he'd see it. Someone else asked if the old man had ever seen the dogs behave like that, and he confirmed, saying he had killed their leader. But then someone opened the gate, and after seeing that, the old man was surprised. And the reason for that was because the hound dogs had arrived. A woman asks if they were insane. Because it was extremely hot in that place, the old man starts apologizing, and the woman asks what the orders were. She took the paper from his hand. And after reading what was written, she says their mission had really changed. And after hearing that, the blue guy was surprised, asking if they weren't going to the 2nd floor, and she shows him the paper, telling him to go. After reading what was written, he crumpled the paper. Then they turned to the man, saying they should file an official complaint since they were being ordered to steal some item. And Sina wasn't even their superior, but he was still giving orders. But the man stays silent, then extends his hand to the blue guy. In the next moment, he begins to hand over a paper to the man. And after taking the paper in his hands, he burns what was written. Looking at the old man, he asks if there were any other orders, and the man says that was the only thing passed on to him. After hearing that, this person, who I'll now call Professor Xavier, started to leave. Then in the next moment, they closed the gate. And after they left, the old man collapsed on the ground. The man asked if he was okay since those were the hound dogs. And they were very scary, but the leader seemed like a decent person. After hearing that, the man yells asking if his friend was blind. The blonde asks why the man was so angry with him, and the old man says he'll only say this once. Because the 9 strongest players in the world were called deities, and Professor Xavier was the apprentice of one of them. After hearing that, the man asked if his friend was talking about the massacre that happened in Turkey, and the old man confirms. The blonde says that's insane, and the man says the hound dogs had 5 members. But Professor Xavier didn't like 2 of them, so he turned them into skeletons. And in the next moment, someone opens the door. After seeing that, the blonde guy is startled. The person standing there was our hero, and they asked if he came to fix the air conditioner since it was extremely hot in there. After hearing that, our hero began to summon ice magic, saying he could help with that. The old man says that was really cool and it looked like the MC was a player. But the old man says it was better to stop since it was already getting too cold. But our hero says that wasn't what he was thinking because he wasn't there to play around since demons should die in silence. After seeing the protagonist's face, the two of them had their eyes turn red. And a few minutes later, our hero's shadow was already devouring both of them. Basically, they were small fish who only gave orders to others. But the hound dogs weren't like that, so our hero started calling someone. That person was Diok, who answers the MC. Our hero apologizes for waking up his friend, but says he had something important to ask. The man asks if our hero was in danger, but he says no, that he actually wanted to participate in the Las Vegas auction. But since it wasn't possible without an invitation, he asks if his friend could get one for him. Diok says, of course, he could get something like that. Our hero was thinking that the auction would happen the next day. He had just gone there to see what the place was like. So there was no need to wear the clothes Diok had sent him since it was a suit made by a queen and it didn't need to be that expensive. As he approached the place, he saw that there was a casino and decided to go in since he'd never been to one before. I think for some reason, when he passed by a bar, he was stopped. And after that, several guards started walking toward him. But after seeing the protagonist's face, one of the guards was surprised, saying that he had been with Gun when she tried to recruit the MC for the Delcade Guild. Our hero says he remembered the person who was with the girl. The MC apologizes for not recognizing the man at first and says it was no problem since it happens and asks what the MC was doing in Las Vegas. The protagonist says he was going to participate in the auction, but it would be boring to stay in his room, so he went out to see what things were like. Hutton said that his group had been hired by one of the owners and that's why they were patrolling. Then he asked if the MC was trying to get into the casino, and our hero confirmed it. The man said he could help our hero since the alarm had gone off because the system had changed. After the whole world changed, casinos started losing money because of players who cheated. Han said that's why the hotel had made a decision to create a casino specifically for players. Since in this place, they could use their abilities however they wanted because the staff were also players, and the MC asked if the stronger ones had an advantage. But Han said it wasn't like that because a player's level didn't determine their skill at games, and he mentioned that because the princess of the Dokkaebi Guild hadn't won a single round. She was complaining that people were cheating, saying that it was obviously the second one. While she cried, our hero was watching her, thinking that she wasn't calculating or using her brain and that the game she was playing favored people with better vision. So getting closer to her, our hero asked if it was a fun game. She said she had lost a lot of money and shouted asking how that could possibly be fun. But after seeing it was our hero, she became friendly, saying she didn't expect to find him there and asked if he wanted to become her subordinate. But our hero refused. The girl said she was just joking and asked what he was doing there. The MC said he was going to attend the auction, and since he had run into Hyan, he ended up going to the casino. She said if anything happened, he could let her know since she was the head of security, and he wondered if she could really bet on duty. But he asked if that game was really that hard, and she confirmed, saying that guy's hands were incredibly fast and that she'd heard he was on the second floor before coming there. Our hero asked if she didn't know who they were, but she said no, because everyone wore masks. The protagonist figured that was obviously to hide their skills, so he called for one of the staff to bring the poker set. Gong asked if he was going to play all at once, saying he was going to lose everything since he wasn't used to their speed. And after seeing that, our hero asked if she had kept losing even after getting used to it. And after hearing that, she made a cute expression while the man said they could start. Then he placed a lead ball under one of the bells and started shuffling. This was one of those classic games where you hide the ball under a cup to play with friends. After finishing the shuffle, the man told our hero to pick one of the items. The girl said she finally understood how the game worked and pointed to the top left one, saying she was sure that was the right one, saying that now she could start betting again since she knew all the tricks, but the MC told her she should stop betting. She asked why, and our hero thought to himself, it was because she had no talent for it. So he said the correct bell was the middle one. After hearing that, the man was surprised and said our hero had gotten it right. And after seeing that, the girl said the protagonist was really lucky. She said luck only worked on the first try, so it was better for him to stop. The girl said the only reason she didn't stop was because she hadn't won a single time. While the MC thought about going one more round, someone arrived. It was that woman from the hunting dogs calling Blue Boy to play with her. And after hearing that, the protagonist was surprised. The man told her to stop calling him that. And guys, I'll call this guy Blue Boy or Bones, which is his name. The protagonist thought he was very lucky since he didn't need to go looking for those two. But so far, he had no proof they were demons, so he couldn't stir up any trouble. The protagonist said he liked this game, and that's why he tried one more time. The girl thought that gambling-free addiction was scary, and the man said that this round, there would be 3 players, so he used 5 bells. Then he started shuffling everything again while the woman and Bones watched. After a while, he said they should choose. The woman said it was the middle one, but the protagonist and the blue guy say that the correct bell was the one on the right. And the man says that both of them got it right, as it really was on the right. The girl says the protagonist was really lucky. While he looked at the 2 hound dogs, our hero was thinking that it was going to be harder to defeat Bones than the woman. A few hours later, the protagonist had already collected several pieces. Gung was saying he really had a talent for it and asked how our hero was so good, and the protagonist says he learned from a friend. The blonde guy says it's very easy to see through a bluff, because it doesn't matter if you're stronger or weaker than the opponent. What truly matters is understanding the essence of the technique they use. The man says he's going to start another round and once again begins to shuffle several bells. The protagonist thinks he doesn't need to pay attention to the bells because all he has to do is watch and learn the man's abilities in front of him. So once again, the protagonist speaks at the same time as the blue guy. And once again, the man says they both got it right. The man says the staff will switch places, so they should wait a little. In the next moment, the protagonist says he has an interesting artifact to show Goon. Then he pulls something shiny from his pocket and shows her a compass. Our hero says that President Diok lent it to him, and if they entered the right sequence into the item, they could locate a certain type of person. The MC says there's no real reason for them to be there, but even so, he'll show her. In the next moment, the compass is pointing at the hound dogs. After seeing that, our hero says he's going to the bathroom quickly, and she tells him to come right back because she wanted to know what that thing did. The blue guy says he's also going to the bathroom, and the woman asks if he'll take long. But he says no. It'll only be 5 minutes. Somewhere else, the protagonist is running down the street until he reaches a dead-end alley. Right behind him is Bones, who says that's a very strange bathroom. He was thinking that the artifact our hero had probably tracked demons. But in the next moment, the MC takes out the compass again. Then he throws it on the ground and the item breaks. After seeing that, he thinks there's no way the artifact could break like that unless it was single use or simply not an artifact at all. Then the protagonist begins to summon his sword, and the blue guy asks if our hero lured him there on purpose. The MC says he felt they were demons back at the casino. The blue guy asks how much our hero knew, and the protagonist says that maybe he even knew what the hound dogs were planning to do the next day. After hearing that, the man says he doesn't need to talk anymore since our hero doesn't need to live anymore. Then the blue guy charges toward the protagonist, who manages to dodge his attack just barely, thinking that the hound dog members really were strong. Trying to get away, our hero jumps back, thinking that the blue guy had the acceleration ability. Bones says he figured out what the protagonist's skill level was, so he should just give up because he wouldn't be able to dodge the next attack. After hearing that, the protagonist closes his eyes. The man thinks the MC figured out that he couldn't see his attacks with his eyes. And the 2 places where people are instantly killed are the head and the heart. And between the 2, the head is easier to hit. So the MC would pretend to aim for the head, while he'd actually aim for the protagonist's heart, and then he charges at our hero again. But in the next moment, the protagonist begins to radiate a white and blue aura. After seeing that, the blue guy is surprised, saying that it didn't matter if our hero used tricks, because he was doomed. But in the next moment, Bones is terrified. The reason for that was because our hero froze the man's arm, saying it was a trap. And if Bones really understood his skill level, he would have attacked more slowly. The protagonist said he already knew the man would aim for the heart even though the head was completely exposed. After seeing that, the man was extremely confused while our hero said that being fast didn't matter if your attacks were predictable. Blue Boy got irritated and prepared to attack our hero again. However, the protagonist managed to defend himself without difficulty, and in the next moment, he struck the man again. And, guys, that attack was brutal. This side character was actually eliminated with a single blow. While the MC said that being too cautious was also very dangerous, a few hours later, the woman had a worried expression, saying that Blue Boy was a much better strategist than she was. And since he hadn't returned after so many hours, he had probably been eliminated. He really was an idiot, especially since he said he'd be back in 5 minutes and had even prepared in advance. After hearing that, Dr. Xavier asked what the MC looked like. She gave a bunch of details that were basically useless for finding someone. So the man showed her a list of all the players currently in Las Vegas. After looking for a while, she was surprised. The reason was because she had found the protagonist and said she was certain it was him. After seeing our hero's character sheet, Professor Xavier thought there was no way his subordinate had died to a rookie. But after looking more closely at the recent events, he saw that the protagonist had entered a dungeon with the Shadow Brothers. After hearing that, the woman asked if the MC was the person who went into the dungeon with them. And the man figured that the protagonist had probably gone after them on purpose. So he said that from that point on, the protagonist was considered a threat to the organization. Therefore, they needed to find him and do whatever it took to eliminate him. At a building, someone was opening a car door and the protagonist stepped out all dressed up, then started walking toward the entrance. After seeing the protagonist, a man told him he needed to show an invitation to enter the event, and our hero showed the one Dayak had sent him. After seeing it, the man was surprised and said the MC could enter. After that, Siyu was shocked and asked if he didn't need to be searched, but the man said no, because the MC was of the IP. While our hero entered with no trouble, an old man was being searched outside. In the next moment, our hero was surprised. The reason was because Gong was in front of the reception with a box. She was asking the receptionist for an iced coffee. The protagonist greeted her, and after seeing our hero, she said he had run away the night before, and he asked if she had really waited for him. The girl asked if he really had the nerve to say that, since he should have told her instead of lying and saying he was leaving. She was so curious she couldn't even sleep, so the MC apologized. She asked if that was the best he could do to make it up to her, and the MC said he'd pay for her snack later. Walking off, she said she'd only accept it if it was expensive. Our hero asked what was inside the box, and she said it had some drinks and ice cream, and that he'd better get ready, because when the auction started, a tough battle would break out, and our hero said she really hated the heat even though she had fire powers. Gong said she was genuinely annoying because she was always hot, but she said she had to wait for a few things so he could go on ahead. The MC thought he hoped everything would go smoothly for her. A few minutes later, the girl was surprised, thinking that the hall was really big. While walking, she even saw Princess Elizabeth and some guy he didn't know. She thought she was really nervous, but could help out if anything went wrong. Then she found the spot where she was supposed to sit. In the next moment, she greeted the person next to her, and unsurprisingly, it was the protagonist. After seeing that, she said the front seats were reserved and not just anyone could sit there. After hearing that, our hero asked if that wasn't his seat since that was what was on his invitation. After seeing our hero's invitation, she said she couldn't believe it was a VIP invite since even she had a lower-ranked one. And now that she noticed he was wearing expensive clothes, and even though he debuted just 2 months ago, he was already getting all kinds of privileges. She asked if he hadn't spent all his money at the casino since his outfit was really expensive. And even if he had spent everything, it still didn't explain how he got that invitation. The MC says that Deal had arranged the clothes, the ticket, and even the hotel for him. And after hearing that, she says she understood, saying she didn't know he was President Duck's successor. And after hearing that, our hero says she was wrong. Gong says he didn't need to hide it since she wasn't an idiot. This invitation came from one of the most powerful people in the country, so she was there as the president's representative. And to avoid continuing that conversation, though still on the same subject, our hero confirms, thinking he now understood why he had received such expensive clothes. She asks why he came there and what he planned to buy, and he says he didn't know yet. Then asks what she wanted, and she replies saying it was the same for her. She wasn't there to play around. She was there as security, so she prioritized work. The MC is surprised, thinking he never expected to hear that from someone who gambled on the job, but even so, he was glad she was there, because he had planned to take down the hound dogs alone. But after reading the blue guy's memories, he changed his mind. Since he couldn't take down Professor Xavier with the strength he had now, whether he liked it or not. When the real battle began, he would need help from the Dokibi Guild. And if the rumors about their strength were true, they wouldn't just be able to protect the Divine Breath. They might even be able to protect everyone at the auction. In the next moment, the lights go out, and she says it was about to begin. The announcer appears and says the auction was starting. A few minutes later, Gong bought a nice crown. She was saying she was having fun. Basically, she was buying every ice attribute item being sold. Our hero asks if she hadn't said she was going to be professional and not get distracted by other things, but she says a true professional could multitask, and then asks if he wasn't going to buy anything. The protagonist says nothing had interested him, and the girl says it seemed like he didn't care about items. The MC thinks there was nothing as good as what he used to have, and so far, the only thing he had bought was that necklace. She asks why he had bought something like that since it only increased regeneration and stamina, and asks if it was a gift for his girlfriend. The MC says he didn't have a girlfriend. After hearing that, she asks if he was going to give it to his mother. But in the next moment, the protagonist says his mother had died. After hearing that, she gets discouraged and says she won't say anything else. And our hero says it was just a gift for his nephew. The announcer says that those who had attended the auction before had seen this before, and its name was Unknown Orb. After hearing that, the MC was surprised because the system activated the Sharp Instinct skill. And the reason for that was that of all his abilities that one had triggered. Some people were saying it didn't matter where it came from since no one had figured out what it was for. A bald guy says someone had claimed they would figure it out, but since it was being auctioned off again, they must have given up, and no one would buy such a useless item. The protagonist thinks he didn't know why his skill activated, but since nothing bad had ever happened before, he trusted again. After seeing that, the girl asks if our hero really wanted that orb. The MC says he had a good feeling about it, so he bought it, and the announcer says the orb had been sold. Then the man says they would now move on to the main attraction, because it was finally time to present the last item. It had been discovered in an ancient dungeon on the second floor, and it was a high-level magical core. Its name was Divine Breath. And, guys, check out this effect. It's really beautiful. Even our waifu thought it was beautiful after seeing it. The announcer said it held an absurd amount of mana, and there were rumors it could even power an entire city. Our hero asked how much she thought someone would pay for it, and she replies that she couldn't even imagine. With a serious expression, he thinks this was the item the hound dogs had come to steal. Then several people kept raising the bid from 450 million to 470 million. And, guys, they really wanted to buy the breath. Even then, it wouldn't stop growing. And the next moment, cracks started appearing on the ceiling. A few seconds later, the ceiling collapsed on top of the host. Something really crazy happened there, guys, since there was smoke flying everywhere. The man was confused about what had just happened. The reason was because Nayan had activated a spell that created a barrier around the entire audience, and then he asked if everyone was okay. After seeing what had happened, the girl asked if the guard was injured. The protagonist thinks that he managed to create that massive barrier in just 1 second, and that's why they called him the Guardian Knight. Our heroine was thinking that only demons would do something like that and wondered who had summoned the skeletons. Our hero thinks that maybe it was the person who caused a massacre in Turkey, and it wasn't a normal ability. Gong started calling someone, saying they should evacuate everyone and protect the items. She tells the guard to grab the divine breath, and then they would look for whoever was summoning the skeletons. And when she was about to ask the protagonist for help, he had already vanished. The next moment, she was surprised, and the reason was someone was shouting that they should wait. Since even if the hall was in chaos, they shouldn't panic and should walk calmly to the exit. But that didn't work at all because people kept running for the exit, and I don't blame them. I'd do the same. An old man was saying they weren't safe because the barrier was close to breaking, but our heroine had already made a hole in the wall and told everyone to escape through there since it would be faster. 9 said the princess shouldn't go around breaking stuff because it was very expensive, but she didn't care. He laughed, saying it was a good call, but he'd be sitting out when she had to write the apology letters. But while they were still talking, a hole appeared in the wall. The next moment, Yin was hit by a bullet. After seeing him get shot, our heroine had a shocked expression, and then the guard fell to the ground. The next moment, the barrier started to crack, and they shattered since the person maintaining them had been taken out, or at least I think he was taken out, guys. Not sure if he actually died. Seems like he didn't since our heroine thinks the shield broke because he passed out. After seeing that, she gets pissed off, saying she would have waited until they found whoever was controlling the skeletons. But now she was way too angry, so a bunch of skeletons started charging forward. But our girl was also heading straight at them, throwing punches and destroying a building that must be worth millions of dollars. But even so, there were still several skeletons left alive. Though probably not for long since a crazy light started appearing. That woman from before said this couldn't be happening because it should be impossible for a human to cause something like that. Looks like that bitch has some kind of vision that lets her see kilometers away since she's got a sniper. She could see our heroine using multiple abilities and thought she wouldn't want to fight someone like that, and that's why she was a sniper. Seems like her ability is more complex than I thought, since she can see multiple images happening at the same time. And after seeing the divine breath, she says that was the item they came to capture. I was about to say her ability is broken since the moment she activated it. The divine breath was already appearing in her hand. And after managing to steal the item, she had that smug bitch expression on her face. But the next moment, an alarm started ringing in her ear. It was Professor Xavier asking if she had already gotten the item, and she confirmed it. He told her to head to point B. While she was saying the mission was complete, she added it was a shame she couldn't take out the NC. Then she got surprised, and right then, she was already seeing a massive beast coming from below. The NC had that same expression as always, but the woman was already going a bit crazy, and she prepared to fire a shot at him. She was actually going to land it since the scope was aimed right at the protagonist's head. Then she shot through the portal, sending the bullet flying toward our hero. That really was what was happening since there were multiple other portals aiming in his direction, and one appeared right near his head. But our hero has always managed to dodge it. After seeing that, she wondered if she had really missed a shot. Even though it was from a long distance, she had used her teleportation ability, and it should have been impossible to miss. But it didn't matter since she wasn't going to miss again. Several other portals were already appearing near the protagonist again. In the next moment, he activated the skill Shadow Steps, and smoke started pouring out of his body. To the woman, it seemed like he had vanished since he had teleported. She thought that should be impossible since even Hatton couldn't dodge those attacks and a rookie shouldn't be able to either. But suddenly, she realized the place he was headed was right where she was. And that's exactly what happened, because the next moment, several ice spikes started appearing. Her body was completely frozen from the legs up to the chest. And that wasn't all, folks. She was already being entirely frozen. The protagonist was standing in front of her with a strong aura pouring from his body. And with that usual expressionless look, she asked what he wanted there, and he asked if it really mattered since it wouldn't change anything because the hunting dogs would be wiped out from the world tonight. Back at the building, there were several skeleton skulls on the ground while our heroine was shouting that it was way too hot. And that when this fight was over, she would take a vacation to travel. But in the next moment, one of the guards called out to her, saying there was an emergency because they couldn't find the divine breath. After hearing that, she asked what had happened, and he said it disappeared during the battle and no one had been able to locate it. She wondered how that was possible, since no one had even gotten close to the item. But in the next moment, all the guards started collapsing, and our girl was shocked by what she saw. I thought it was Professor Xavier showing up, but it was actually other skeletons. And after seeing that, her heroine was trembling hard. And yeah, there were already several skeletons surrounding her heroine. Now, I understood why she was so scared, because these were black skeletons. She had chosen her team members from among the best, but even so, they had already been defeated. One of the guards said there was something strange, and she was confused and asked what it was. He said the armor the skeletons were wearing looked very familiar, and he had seen it somewhere before. Our heroine asked what he was talking about. The guard said that 3 years ago, several players had gone missing on the second floor and asked if she remembered that. The girl asked if he was referring to the time they disappeared without a trace, and the man said he had been investigating it. So he knew all the details, the players' gear, and their fighting styles, and they were exactly the same as these skeletons. After hearing that, our heroine fell silent and had a scared expression on her face. Our hero was studying that woman's memories, and Professor Xavier was saying he was going to attack the auction and distract our heroine, and she would steal the divine breath. Basically, the point B they had mentioned before was a hotel. The protagonist thought that she also didn't have much memory about the demon association, and it seemed like the leader of the hunting dogs didn't trust his subordinates. He would have to use the memories of the skeleton mage to figure out more about the demon association. And since according to the hunting dog's memories, the skeletons at the auction were players who had been sacrificed, Professor Xavier was hiding somewhere far from the auction and had several traps to protect himself. The protagonist started thinking of ways to get in there. And in the next moment, he looked at the woman's arm and saw a watch there. I don't know what the protagonist's plan is, but I'm sure it's going to be something crazy. In Professor Xavier's room, there were several mana circles. He was looking at the latest messages and that the protagonist was sending messages through the woman, saying that the mission had been completed and that a few people were following her. And after reading that, the man got confused. The man asked how the item was, and our hero said he would leave it at a marked location for Professor Xavier. He was wondering if there was another group they hadn't accounted for since it wasn't the Dokibi Guild or the NC. So he activated an ability that transported him to the mark used by their group. Then in the next moment, he appeared in the middle of an alley and he saw the marker the woman had on her watch. Looking behind him, he thought there was a very high concentration of magic there. It even made it easier for him to find it. Then Professor Xavier opened the lid of the dumpster, finding a ball of ice inside, thinking it was the divine breath. But he was wondering if the cores were really supposed to be that cold. The next moment, the ball began to crack, then it exploded in Professor Xavier's face. After seeing that, he was confused. Then his body became frozen. He was thinking this was a trap, and he also had to think about how they had discovered their marker. But the most important thing was to defend against the attack, so he activated his ability. The next moment, several skeletons began to appear on the ground. Guys, he had an army of skeletons, and I'll tell you, this guy looks seriously badass, like a super powerful villain who's going to make the protagonist suffer. The next moment, the protagonist said that this wasn't bad at all, but it was a big disadvantage since the man was defenseless while casting the spell. After hearing that, he quickly turned around. But our hero managed to pierce Professor Xavier's chest without difficulty. And after that, the man started coughing up a lot of red liquid while wondering if the MC had really waited for him to cast the spell from the very beginning. A few seconds later, Professor Xavier was against the wall while asking what the protagonist's name was. The MC, as always, was expressionless while asking if the man had answered the questions of the people he had killed. After seeing that, Professor Xavier went silent. Then in the next moment, our hero was preparing to land the final blow. After that, all the skeletons that were fighting our heroine started to vanish. The guard from earlier said they had all turned to dust, and our girl was wondering if Professor Xavier had recalled them all. But we all know the truth here, guys. The protagonist humiliated the professor. The MC thinks he had leveled up more than he expected. And maybe it was because Professor Xavier's ability levels were higher. And if he hadn't fallen into the trap, the one eliminated would have been the MC. Placing his hands on the man's head, our hero thought it would be good if he had some memories. Some people said it was really good to recruit a summoner since the higher-ups would be pleased, and it had been a long time since they had found a top-tier item. And the boy should feel honored since Nazad was interested in his ability, and he wanted to make the boy the leader of the hound dog. Someone said the biggest goal for the demons was to conquer the tower, but that didn't matter since he would learn the details once he reached the second floor. But our hero couldn't see anything else because his skill rank was too low and it had been deactivated for his safety. The protagonist was angry because it was happening again and the important memories were blocked. But even so, he had still managed to discover a lot, because with the memories, he had found out that the demons trained the children to become other demons. Before becoming those creatures, they were seen as items, not people. And if they couldn't keep up with the harsh training, they were thrown away. But now he couldn't just stand still since he had discovered the truth. The weapon that had caused the massacre in Turkey was a child from an orphanage. And for that reason, he needed to eliminate all of them before they created more monsters. He also needed to go after Nazad, wondering if that was the person he had seen in the memories of the Shadow Brothers, and it was possible. But he wasn't sure, and it would really suck to face both a master and a disciple at the same time. But that did matter since he was going to root out the evil and kill all the demons. At the hotel where the fight had taken place, our heroine had a tired expression. While asking if they still hadn't found the item and a guard apologized, our heroine was still wondering if they had actually managed to grab the item and escape. And if they had fought a little more, maybe they could have tracked the rats. Then she asked what time it was and they answered saying it was already 7 o'clock in the morning. Our heroine was pissed off since if it weren't for the demons, she could be sleeping right now. Said he had something for her since someone had given her a gift. She said that he was always sending those things and even posted on the fan club that it shouldn't mean anything. 9 asked what was inside and the girl asked if it was something weird, but he said it wasn't since he had already seen it. And after opening it, she might end up getting scared. And after seeing it was the divine breath, the girl said it looked like an identical replica, almost like the one she saw at the auction, but the man said it was actually the original. She was confused. After a while, she got scared, asking if it was really true since it shouldn't be the same one that Professor Xavier had taken, and said that's why she would be scared. There was even a letter in English saying that he was a fan of our heroine and ended up recovering the divine breath by accident. Gong said she didn't even have to do anything. Her fan solved everything and the guard confirmed it was exactly that. But the most important thing was that they didn't have to pay anything and they would have had a lot of problems if they hadn't recovered the core. And Gong said she was very grateful to whoever returned it. She asked if it was possible to find out who it was since she'd like to meet them, but the man said it was impossible. Since there was no trace left at the death of Professor Xavier and had been the work of professional, it was probably a powerful rancor. And just as she was about to say something, she saw that our hero had shown up. And after realizing that, she pointed at him. But our hero just greeted her with a good morning as if nothing had happened. She had a really funny expression while asking if that was all he had to say, asking how he did that again since he had simply run away from the emergency, and he said he didn't understand. Then he remembered that it probably looked like he had run away. Gong said he had run away last time too, and he always ran away from things. And since he was strong, he should use that strength, because the Spectre had said that the power of players was meant to protect people. And after hearing that, the protagonist was confused, asking if he had really said something like that. She said it had nothing to do with him since it was the Spectre who had to say those things. Our hero thought that he only said it because someone put it in the interview script. She said that from that moment on, he couldn't run away anymore if something happened and should think about other people's safety, and our hero said he understood. Our heroine smiled and said it was really good to hear that. Then she showed the letter to the MC and asked if he knew who had written it. The MC replied that he didn't, and the girl said it was her fan who had taken care of Professor Xavier and the other demons, and he even sent back the divine breath. And the guard had even said it could have been a rancor, and now she was curious to know who it was, and the MC asked what she would do if it wasn't a rancor. He said that was impossible since they had investigated everything and found no traces of anything. The protagonist smiled, thinking that he had erased all the traces with the magic he had learned, and that ability he learned from Skya had been useful. Gong said that since the writing looked like it was done by an American, he was probably fluent, and the MC asked if they really needed to find this person. Since if they wanted to, they would know who it was because that person would reveal themselves, and she said that was true since it would be rude to go looking for him. Then she asked what he had gone there to do, and our hero said he came to get the items he had bought. She pointed to a table, saying the items were there. Then she asked if he was going back to Korea, and the MC confirmed, and she said it was said they had to part ways. Then she asked if he really didn't want to join her guild, and the MC thanked her and refused again. She said that next time she hoped to see him on the second floor, and she said it wouldn't take long. Our heroine started laughing, saying that was exactly what everyone said, and the protagonist said she would see when he got there. Then she said that if he made it to the second floor within 6 months, he would get a gift. The MC asked what would happen if he didn't make it, and the girl said he would have to grant her a wish. And he thought that she still hadn't given up on him joining the guild, and the protagonist said she better not cry when she loses. After that, our hero started picking up the items, wondering why his sharp senses had reacted to that orb since there was no item window or anything like that. And when he tried to use magic, only a purple aura appeared, but it disappeared the next moment. The protagonist thinks he'll leave it in the inventory and run some tests, and at some point, something will happen. Then looking at one of the boxes, he thinks that he'll go ahead and do it. A few hours later, someone was kneeling in front of a house. This person was wondering who would send an item via teleport from the first floor to the second floor. And after opening it, he was surprised. The reason was because this person was the protagonist's nephew. After reading that, he thinks that our hero had finally started to move. A few days later, our hero was leaving the airport. After getting into the car, he stayed silent. And our favorite secretary was also quiet. Then she asked if there was a problem, and he said no, saying he didn't know she would go all the way there to see him. She said that was also part of her job and asked if he wanted to go anywhere else. Then in the next moment, the protagonist handed her a gift, saying he didn't know what she liked, so he brought a book. She asked if he had really brought that book, an English edition, and the protagonist asked if she knew it since it was the last copy. With her eyes shining, she said she did. She had looked everywhere but hadn't found it. Our hero said that was great since he wasn't sure she would like it. And if she wanted, she could go read it. Jess said it was time for work, and the MC asked if she had anything to do right now, and she said no. The MC said if that was the case, no problem, because he was going to sleep and wanted to wake up only when they arrived at the association. After hearing that, she went silent and wished our hero a good night. Later, the protagonist was in Deok's office delivering a gift, but Deok said he had quit drinking. The MC said he had already told Arthur he was going to level up, and the man said that was good since the boy had already gone through a lot. And it was a shame he couldn't see him because he was at the second floor border, and the MC said it had been a long time. Daik agreed, saying the boy had said he wouldn't come down because being there reminded him of his father. The protagonist said he had heard that his invitation wasn't normal, and Daik said he hadn't expected his friend to find out. Then he said he wanted everyone to know he cared about Seo, and that's why no one would bother him. After that, the MC said he needed a favor. He needed to find an orphanage. And after hearing that, the man was confused. Our hero said he had discovered something about the demons. Then he began to tell all the things he went through in the United States and about the memories he had absorbed. After hearing that, Dayuk asked if they really raised children to become demons, and the MC confirmed, saying he just didn't know where the orphanage was. The man slammed the table with his fist, saying the demons really had no limit. Then he grabbed the drink the MC had brought, and Siyu asked if Dayuk hadn't quit drinking, but the man said it didn't matter. Now he was going to drink it all. Then the MC started chilling his friend's glass. In the next moment, the man said that Kwon had called for the protagonist. After that, the MC was confused. Dayuk said it was about the sword he had requested. Since the next day, Kwon would finish forging it. And with the MC's career, it wouldn't be suspicious for them to be seen together. The protagonist confirmed since he had been escorted by the Dokibi Guild, and now probably everyone already knew his name. The man said his friend should go in the morning, so the protagonist said he would rest. Deok said his friend was really eager to see Kwon, but after the MC left, he had a serious expression while saying he also had to do what he could. The next day, the protagonist was saying that the old man's house was still the same as it had been 25 years ago. Then he kept walking toward the man's house, thinking he had heard that Kwon's grandson had taken over the forge. And it seemed like the boy was doing well, so he was eager to see how the crybaby had turned out. But after entering, our hero saw someone hammering a sword. And guys, I don't know about you, but I don't think this guy is a crybaby. Now I really don't think so. Just look at the size of this dude. After seeing that, the protagonist was surprised, wondering if this was really his friend's grandson, since he had changed so much in 25 years. And after seeing the MC, No recognized him as the player's CEO. Since the association had already contacted them, they already knew he was coming. As they walked in, the protagonist was looking around, wondering if his friend was really upstairs. But in the next moment, someone walked into the room saying that it was really hard to get a look at our hero's face. After hearing that, the protagonist said it had been a long time since they had last seen each other. Guys, from the silhouettes that had shown up before, I thought Kwan was going to be some jacked old man, but actually he wasn't. Noya asked if this wasn't the first time they were seeing each other, but Kwan told his grandson not to worry about that and told him to get some tea for the MC. And Noya asked if he should really get that tea, and the old man said he didn't want to repeat himself again. The MC noticed that Noya still obeyed his grandfather, and Kwan said that when his grandson didn't understand things, he would get very stubborn. But the protagonist said he had learned pretty well, since he saw the boy hammering when he arrived. And Kwan said the kid didn't need to learn that much. So the MC asked why his friend didn't welcome them if he wasn't happy to see him there. And Kwan asked why he should be happy. Then he said his friend had gone through a lot, and the protagonist thanked him for still being the same as before. But then Kwan asked why the MC had come back. Seo said he didn't have an answer for something like that, and Kwan said he already knew the summary, but still wanted to know why the protagonist had returned as a player. The MC said he would show him, and in the next moment, he started casting ice magic. After seeing that, the man was surprised and asked if that really was the Ice Queen's ability. A few minutes later, they were sitting down. Kwan asked if his friend had gotten that ability after killing the queen and if he had managed to save his comrades, and the MC confirmed it, saying that they had made a deal and worked together. Then he extended his hand to his old friend. So Kwan said that he had made a contract with the Spectre, not with the rookie named Seo. After hearing that, the MC was surprised. But in the next moment, Kwan started laughing and said he was just joking since he wanted to see the look on the protagonist's face, and our hero asked if the sword still wasn't ready. After hearing that, the man said it was already finished, and the MC was surprised, saying he didn't expect it to be that quick. Kwan said his friend had really forgotten that he wielded the hammer for our hero. The MC held the sword for Kwan, and that was the agreement they had made. After hearing that, our hero was surprised and said he didn't remember saying something like that since it was really embarrassing, and the old man told him to just go test the weapon. So the protagonist started unsheathing it. And let's be honest, folks, that sword looked amazing, and the MC thought it fit perfectly in his hand. And it seemed like his friend had thought of him even after 25. And Kwan asked who in their right mind would throw bones at an old man and ask him to make a sword out of it. Then he said he had added some new materials and that both the magic and the durability were much better. Then our hero accessed the system and thought this was exactly what a sword was supposed to be, because it was completely different from the others. And he said he had always liked that weapon. Kwan said he had improved a lot over the last 25 years, and the MC had gotten more polite with an old man who played Go. And after hearing that, the protagonist was surprised, saying he had never been defeated before, and Kwan said his skills had really improved a lot. And now he was way better than our hero, and Noya was surprised as he brought the tea. Then he placed it on the table and said it was ready. Our hero thanked him, and the old man said it was a rare tea, so the MC better not waste it. The protagonist said he had already tried all kinds of expensive tea before. But in the next moment, he was surprised, and Kwan asked what his friend thought. Our hero said he had never tasted anything like it before and asked what it was made of. The old man said he wouldn't reveal it that easily unless the MC could beat him in a game of Go. And in the next moment, the protagonist said he accepted, but Kwan shouldn't cry. A few minutes later, someone was throwing several pieces on the table, saying it was impossible, and the MC was saying he just wanted to know the name of the tea. In the next moment, the old man sat down in the chair and asked if our hero knew about the secondary races. The MC said they were elves and orcs, but Kwan said that was in the past since their intelligence standard had changed after the second floor opened. Now that the secondary races were intelligent enough to communicate. After hearing that, the MC was surprised and asked if they could actually talk to orcs too, since before he had only heard meaningless screams. Kwan said they had never had intelligence, so they couldn't communicate. Then the protagonist asked why his friend was bringing all this up out of nowhere, and the old man said it was because our hero had asked about the tea, since it was made with tea leaves cultivated by elves. After hearing that, the MC asked if he could get some if he reached the second floor, and Kwan said it was almost impossible to form an alliance with elves. But our hero, unfazed, said he had something to ask his friend, and pulling out the orb, he asked if his friend knew anything about it. After hearing that, the man said he didn't know everything in the world, but he knew that was an item made by elves, and the MC asked how he knew that. The man said it was because he had once spoken with the elder of one of the elf tribes. After hearing that, the MC was surprised, asking if the old man had really been to the second floor, and he replied no, since the elf had come down to the world on his own. After hearing that, the MC wondered if something like that could really exist, and Kwan said his friends shouldn't be so surprised since that was secret information, and our hero said the man could go on. Kwan said the elf was mysterious and had a strange energy in his body. It felt like he was talking to nature itself, and he got the same feeling when he looked at the aura. After hearing that, our hero said he understood, and Quan said if he was curious, he could go to a place where he might find them. Since elf items containing energy from the world tree were important, and that way, he might be able to find something out. After hearing that, the MC said he would ask the secretary if she knew of a way to find the elves. Quan asked if his friend was already leaving and said he shouldn't see what was inside the house. The MC thought his friend was still pretending to be a cold person, and Noya told Seo not to feel bad since his grandfather just didn't know how to express his feelings properly. Our hero said he understood, but asked what that was, and the man said it was the tea leaves he had been drinking. The reason was because Quan wanted to give some to the MC, and he had never treated a visitor like that before. The protagonist thanked him, and the man was about to say something, but in the next moment, he stopped and said it wasn't that important since our hero would find out eventually. A few minutes later, inside the car, Xiao was saying that dark elves were corrupted and had betrayed the world tree. They moved in groups. If he was lucky, he might be able to find the legendary potion in their village. There was even a portal in England where they had appeared, and it was called the Wild Forest. And she asked if Xiao was interested in going there, and he confirmed. Then she sent him a video saying it would be good for him to watch it. It was a warning from the Changi Guild saying they were going to participate in the dungeon. She said guilds and players from all over the world were also going, and after hearing that, he was surprised and asked what they knew about the portal. She said it was in England, and the objective was to kill the tribe leader, and only players between level 20 and 30 could participate. And there was also a group restriction of 200 people, and even our hero was surprised after hearing that. Somewhere else on the second floor of the tower inside a forest, inside a small house, someone threw a plate of food at the wall while cursing our hero. That person was Sina, who was asking if the hunting dogs had really been eliminated. And the architect said it was true, since they had lost contact with everyone and they had probably fallen into a trap. The man thought he was in serious trouble now, since Nazad was very fond of his apprentices and the sword saint kept chasing him non-stop. So he asked what the association had said, and the architect said that after seeing the MC's report, they claimed it was impossible for him to have been taken out by a rookie player. But then, in the next moment, someone knocked on the door. Sina said they had an unwanted guest. In the next moment, someone opened the door, and both the demon and even the architect trembled in fear. I think things were getting real, because there was even lightning outside. The person there was an old man who asked if the little red one was Sina. Even the extra knelt the moment that guy walked in. So this dude must be really terrifying. And, yeah, folks, this guy was Nazad, the one our hero is trying to uncover the identity of. The man said he had read Sina's report and wanted to know if it really was the MC who eliminated those disciples, and Sina said he wasn't sure. But right after saying that, he got punched in the face and was sent flying after the hit. Guys, the man was being choked by a kind of red shadow. While the old man asked if the little red one really thought he had come all the way there for an answer like that, Sina was screaming, saying he really didn't know, but that if he had another chance, he would capture our hero and bring him to Nazad. After hearing that, the man had a serious expression. Then in the next moment, he let go of the extra, and Sina collapsed to the floor. The old man said the red one had only 6 months to bring our hero to him. Sina said it was too hard since our hero was just a rookie, and it was impossible for him to get to the second floor in 6 months. Nasset said the red one shouldn't misunderstand. What was on the line was his life. Then in the next moment, he disappeared. And after Nazad left, Sina started to get up, telling the architect to find a tracker. And the architect asked if he meant the item that could be used to descend without the association noticing. And he asked if Sina was really going to do something like that. And the man confirmed saying that's exactly what he was going to do, because he was going to leave the sword hero behind and go to the second floor himself. There was a plane flying in England. Someone was asking the protagonist if he had arrived safely, and he replied that thanks to her, he was fine. CHA asked why he was in such a hurry since the dungeon would only open in 4 days, and he said he wanted to clear the small dungeons in the region as a warm-up. After hearing that each group would have 200 people, he was surprised, and the secretary asked if there was any problem. Basically, the system had appeared together with the players and portals, and the system was fair. And if 200 players could enter, that meant the portal would be extremely difficult since he wouldn't be able to protect 200 people while fighting. Because of that, this dungeon would be much harder than normal. 4 days later, several hunters were entering the portal. There were even normal people there just to watch. A girl was saying that everyone was really excited to enter, and the strongest players in the world were gathered there. In the next moment, that girl pointed at one of the people there. That man was the one who went with the NC to the Grey Fox dungeon. In the next moment, the girl said her friend was probably looking for our hero, and after hearing that, he was surprised. She said he kept searching for the NC, and the guy just said he was excited. because when he was fighting against the Grey Fox, everyone saw how he fought, and he felt bad for always choosing the easy path, and the MC made him want to be better. That's why he wanted to show our hero that he had changed and become someone stronger. And in the next moment, the girl pointed at Seal, saying he was right there. Right after that, a few people started approaching, and obviously, they were the two who had been talking earlier. It started a conversation, and our hero recognized the extra from the Grey Fox dungeon. He thanked the man since it was this guy who carried the protagonist after he passed out, and the man said he had come to talk to the protagonist because he had a proposal to make. The MC asked what the proposal was. In the next moment, the man asked our hero if he had already found a group to enter the dungeon with, since if he didn't have one, they could join the Chonghei Guild. The protagonist thought it wouldn't be a bad idea since going alone into the portal would be worse, saying he agreed with the proposal. And now, folks, they were going to enter the portal. There were some hunters with confident smiles on their faces, while others were serious. But it didn't matter since we only care about the protagonist. In the next moment, he began entering the dungeon, and after a few seconds, he entered the Dark Elves dungeon. Our hero was wondering why people started splitting up after entering. So he asked if they weren't going to have a strategic meeting with the other guilds. The man said they used terminals, so there was no need for a meeting after entering the portal. The protagonist asked what that was, and, basically, it was an item that let players communicate even when far apart. Our hero said he understood why they were handing out those items. Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye-bye.